welcome to the show. A very special show today for me. Selfishly, as you see my guest today, Erik Nagel, Erock for O&A fans. Hey, buddy, how are you?
Hey, sir, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Are you really? You moved to the desert. It's not a happy place to live.
It is when I look at my weather and it's like, oh, it's 38 degrees in Detroit and it's like 80 and sunny here.
Right.
Then it's
yeah,
okay.
and it's 80 and sunny. It's like, oh, it's nice. It's 80 and sunny in March. And then comes June and it's 120 degrees and you're on a lockdown that you can't leave your house.
Yes, that's true. But I don't leave the house anyways, really.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those like out and about kind of guys. It's pretty bad for this. I was here last summer. Like I got here right at the summer. It was like, all right, jump into the furnace. Let's see what this is like. And so I did. I got here in like June or July even. And it was, 120. And it was like, it just wasn't as bad. I was expecting hell, literally. And it's just a different heat than that heat that you probably remember from Florida days. And I remember from Detroit in the summer in the humidity.
Right.
It's different than that.
Where you don't have to give the exact town, but which state are you in?
Scottsdale, Arizona.
Oh, okay. You're not far from where my co-host lives.
Is it Jordan?
Yeah, he's in the Arizona area. And
we can't say where.
No, I mean it's near you. I never give out people's information.
Yeah. Fair enough.
And my buddy, my one of my best friends, who's pretty famous out by your parts, his name's Frank. He's
Caliendo.
No, it's Frank. He has a very popular web series called Fridays with Frank. He's a deputy out there, and he's world famous for pulling people over in various areas. I think it's Pinal County that he's out there, and people just love watching his body cam footage and the dash cam footage of him pulling over people. And he's like overly polite and happy while all these people are miserable that they got pulled over.
Yeah.
So Frank's out there, Jordan's out there. And
I thought for sure you were going to say Caliendo when you said famous. I was like, well, Frank Caliendo's around here.
Well, there's different kinds of fame. There's like Frank Caliendo. I know him because I watched Football Famous. And then there's Frank, who was internet worldwide famous for pulling people over. Actually, Frank got really famous in 2016, when the election was the campaign for 2016 was going on. Frank got really famous. There was some Trump rally happening out in Pennsylvania, and all these people barricaded a major highway with vans and cars and stuff. And one lady had a bike lock, and she locked her neck around remember like an old cargo van from the 70s and 80s, like a Chevy van where the doors and everything's just metal and, if you got hit, you survived.
Yeah.
That kind of a tank. Well, it's the old fashioned big steel rear view mirrors that come off the car that you have to sit there and go like that to adjust. Right.
Yeah. Oh, I totally remember.
She locked a bike lock around her neck to that rear view mirror, and thinking like, well, you can't touch me. I'm a protester. It's a peaceful protest, whatever.
Yeah.
Frank, there's cameras on it. It was on Fox, CNN, BBC. Like it was everywhere. Frank just goes, like shrugs, walks away, goes into one of their trucks, comes back with these giant bolt cutters.
Yeah, sure.
Puts his foot on her leg so that she's like pinned against the thing, and just goes in and pops it off, make sure it comes off safely. And then they just yank her out, put handcuffs, and walk away, and people or whatever. And Frank just turns around. He's not looking at the camera. Like the camera's here. He just turns around and goes like this. He just goes like that, takes her, and they throw her in essentially the paddy wagon, if you will.
Yeah.
And that clip everywhere.
It's like a city version of the tree huggers that would chain themselves to trees in Oregon. And they just
but out there, a lot of them try to disguise themselves as Native Americans because big population out there, but you find out a lot of them, like a couple of them are, but they're using the guys that they're Native Americans. They can protest. You can't arrest me on these lands, whatever. And then they find out it's like, this guy's from Utah. This guy's from California. It's all from these places. Like you just came to cause shit and under the guise of activism, just to make a name for yourself, to get on the news or something.
I love it. That's funny, man.
Well, I'm sorry you're living in Arizona, but I am happy that you're in a better state of mind living.
I was just kind of rotting away. And I grew up in a situation as a kid where most of my family was in California, or Illinois, and I was in Michigan. And so I never really knew my aunts and uncles that well, my cousins. I'd see them once a year, once every few years. And as we got older out of childhood, it was like, I'd be lucky to see them every 5 years.
Yeah.
And that holds today. And so I was in Michigan, my sister's in California, my brother's in Arizona, and I'm in a nice house. I've got my studio.
And you're
I'm
not a
doing my
far
thing.
commute to go to California. It's like less than 6 hours to get out there.
Well, it's like 4.5 hours to LA, but she's in Northern. They're in Northern. So it's about an 11-hour drive, but it's like an hour and a half flight. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
So,
isn't it great when you recognize that time in your life and you go, why am I staying in this area just because I think or my family says I have to stay in this area?
Yeah.
Like you start to realize, you go, wow, now I feel like I've been imprisoned here. Like I wasn't miserable, but now I'm really, I don't need to stay here because my family's here, or I don't need to stay here just because this is where I grew up. I can leave and go to whatever I want, go wherever I want. And it's not like, oh, I'm 18, I'm going to college. That's your first experience of it. And then you figure out where you're going to work, where you're going to live. But when you're older and you go, I'm old enough to know better. Why am I staying in this area? I could go live somewhere cheaper, more cost effective, or somewhere where the weather's nicer and I could be happy. It's amazing feeling to have that off your shoulders and go, I could move and I'm going to move. This is fantastic.
Yeah, that's where I got. It was like, okay, these people are going to grow up and really not know their uncle. They're going to know him as the weird guy that shows up at Christmas once a year.
Now he's the weird guy that talks to nobody in his garage. So that's fantastic.
Right. Why does Uncle Mike live alone and he doesn't have kids? Like, that's weird.
Your brother's like look at all his toys.
Yeah, I know. Like, look at my toys, dude. I got Motley Crue dolls and shit. I love it. I know, dude. I want to talk about your set behind you there. It's not even a set for us. This is just the stuff I have. And you have. It's like we've never grown up. The thing that kept me for the long, like I was the kid that was getting the hell out of Michigan the second I could. I hated the gray skies, hated the winter. And I got a job in radio. And it happened to be the biggest show in Detroit by a mile. And it just didn't end for 20 years. And so it was like,
it's a great opportunity.
You couldn't go anywhere. I didn't want to go anywhere. I loved what I did. I wasn't really working. And it was awesome. And so after that, I'm doing this show. I built a studio in the house. I'm doing my show. And it's like, I don't need to do this here. Like the world's changed. I don't need to be here.
Yeah. I used to work on a show called Opie and Anthony. We'll get into that in a little bit. We realized back in the 2000s when Anthony started building his own studio at his house, and it's like, we could not be in the studio. Like we want to come here, but we don't have to be here all the time. So if there's like because living around New York City, massive traffic everywhere, and if a highway's down or a bridge or a tunnel's closed, you're fucked trying to get into the city. Can we curse on here or no?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Say whatever you want.
So it's like, well, I could then work remotely. I could turn my studio on, patch into their studio, and still be on the air and it sound fine and what have you. They wouldn't let you do that.
Yeah.
They wouldn't. If you built a home studio, they still wanted you to sit in at least maybe not the on-air talent, but the on-air talent had to be in their studio. They didn't allow them to work remotely. Everyone else, it's like, I got better equipment in my studios at home than you have that you're giving us in this office. I can get more done if I could just go home and do it from there rather than having to sit in the office for several hours just so the managers can walk past to see that you're there and it looks like you're doing something.
Totally.
Now we're at that time period where the work you do and the output you put out reflects on how well you're doing your job and if you're allowed to work remotely. It's like he's getting more done from home than he ever did in the office. Okay, cool. Keep that, or a hybrid thing, come in once in a while. This was in the 2000s. Now it took a pandemic and like 2 years on top of that for all these companies to realize like, okay, yeah, we'll keep this going. I know people who work for various different companies that wound up getting rid of their offices altogether. Like they had headquarters in Manhattan or down in Miami or in not DC, but like Cleveland, major cities where certain industries have their capitals, their headquarters for. they close down their offices. People are working remote, and if they have to get everybody together for something, they'll fly into whatever city. They rent those rent-to-work spaces or the conference rooms at a hotel, and people come in for 1 to 3 days to the hotel, to those places, and work from there just because they have lectures, seminars, training, whatever else is going on, and then they go back home and work from home.
Yeah.
There's no reason to have to live somewhere unless it's super specific to live anywhere and not be able to do your job anymore.
Yeah.
It's a
I
great
remember
time.
they were pretty cool with us in the at Riff in Detroit. Mark and I, who was the other producer, it'd be like you and Sam. Mark and I like rented a house, or he bought a house and I rented a room or something. And we put together our entire CD. Just took a DAT player home, took all the best of DATs that we had, and literally just edited, produced the whole thing. And then we just bring it into Drew and Mike the next day and be like, here's where we're at. What do you think? And Drew would give his notes. And it was like, yeah, we don't need to sit in this fucking building till midnight doing this. We can do this over beers in a spare bedroom. You know what I mean?
It took me, sorry, I didn't mean to step on you. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're good. Go.
It took me years once we started realizing that. And it took me, I think 2009, 10 for SiriusXM to give me the login stuff to work remotely. So not that I was always there for Opie and Anthony, but like I also ran the channel. So if I had to do weekend programming, best of programming, if we were going to be off for a week or two, say like the end of the year, where I got to build 24-hour clocks for the next 2 weeks for the thing, I don't need to be sitting in the office all hours of the day trying to get it done because it's mundane. It's not hard, but it's time consuming.
Yeah.
Once they gave me that login, I was able to sit at home in my living room watching a movie and doing it through the laptop that they gave me that had all the security software, the keys and all this other shit. Built everything on my stuff on a thumb drive, transferred it over to that laptop, uploaded it through there, started scheduling everything. And I was like, I thought at that time, 2010, 11, somewhere in there, I'm like, it's never going to get better than this. Now I don't need to be there at all.
At all.
I'm not there at all, but I could not be there at all.
It's almost counterproductive to be there in a way, it's crazy how much they fought that too. I'm sure I remember in my contracts over the years, like it was specific in there, like you couldn't talk to another show. You couldn't go on another show. You couldn't give an interview without written permission from the company. Like Greater Media had to sign off on it. Not that people were trying to book interviews, but nowadays it's like, reach out to Erik Nagel. Let's have him on. And, I don't know how Sirius was or K-Rock in those days,
Sirius
but
didn't care.
What's that?
Sirius didn't care. I mean, we did Jocktober, so we played shows from other companies all the time. We used to have people like if during the Jocktober, if somebody reached out to us and say, hey, we, some people would go on their show and retaliate, and we'd play those clips. I'm like, all right, cool. They get the joke, or they're in on it, or they're just total douchebags. We don't need to continue with them. Some would like, we want to talk to you, whatever. Cool, let's set it up. We'd patch the studios together. We'd bring them in, or they'd call in or something. We'd have them on the air. We didn't care.
Yeah.
We didn't care at all. It didn't matter what the company was. We would talk to anybody.
You guys were an outlier. You guys were so different. I mean, in the days like just the thinking of management, GMs, that kind of stuff, program directors back in the day of like, you would never go on the competition or, like you're our intellectual property. You guys broke the mold, no doubt, with Jocktober. Jocktober is one of the fucking greatest bits that's ever aired in radio history.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I agree.
Who came up with that bit?
Depending who you ask on the show, they'll say them.
Yeah.
But I can tell you who took care of it, who managed it, who made it into what it was Sam Roberts, because he would constantly monitor other shows and stuff. I would help out with certain content for Jocktober, because we usually tried to end the month with turning it back on Opie and Anthony. So I would go way back into their archives. I'd find rare stuff and anything that just made them sound like douchebags or terrible or whatever.
Yeah.
That would be the ending of Jocktober, where we would turn it on Opie and Anthony. We'd play horrible clips from something from them or Jim Norton's past or, whatever.
Yeah. Comics
that would be,
doing stand-up, bad
so we'd
stand-up.
go a whole month just destroying everybody nationwide. And then at the end, it's like, all right, now it's your turn to come at O&A for how terrible this old bit was or this stuff that they're doing, right?
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Erik.
No, so like I would do O&A stuff. I would do Scott and Todd was my favorite because I used to work there for a tiny bit with them. And if there were shows that I had experience with or I had archives of or whatever, I would contribute that. Sam did most of the heavy work where he was going through trimming out clips, getting the gist of what the show was, giving the presentation and presenting it to O&A live on the air so they could hear it for the first time. O&A never heard anything ahead of time. They never wanted to preview anything. Everything had to be, we'll do it on the air. Okay. So we would give them the audio. Here's the list. And they would go and do all of that stuff. So yeah, Sam did a lot of the work. Ope likes to say that, that he came up with the thing too. And maybe he did. There were times long before Jocktober became a thing, we would check on some other shows for a while. Cause obviously O&A had things with Howard for a while. They hated Mancow, so sometimes something came out with Mancow, we'd pull some clips. If a station or a show got in trouble for something anywhere in the country, we would go and find that audio that all of a sudden got erased or didn't get got pulled off their feet somehow. We had it before the companies got to scrub it. We would do those things. Scorch, there's this guy Scorch, he was a O&A knew from way back in the day at WAAF. He's just one of those old crusty rock jocks that just didn't and still doesn't know that the world has passed them by and how to adapt or change. They used to talk about Scorch from like 99, 2000. So Jocktober kind of always was there in little bits and pieces, putting it all together and like, hey, let's just make a month because it was making fun of Rocktober, which the rock stations did.
Totally.
The first one, they thought, of course, Opie thought it would be funny. Let's do Erocktober. So then it was like a week or something in October where it was just all like there were song parodies making fun of me. There were clips of things that I've said in the past, bits or whatever I've done. That was the initial start of it. And then the following year became Jocktober. And then it just blew up from there where we just went around the country and spanning the globe looking for terrible radio shows.
So did those, like some of those, you guys did one on a guy girl team in Detroit and I mean, I don't even remember the name. I just remember it was in Detroit.
There was some kind of service online that we could look this up.
Yeah. Right. You'd have to know the Jocktober, but it was, I gotta think, dude, that had to have been devastating.
Was it Mojo?
No, it wasn't Mojo. I know.
We did Mojo, him. But I'm looking.
Yeah.
It was a guy-girl team, you said?
It was a guy-girl team. It was a blonde girl, and it was just so bad. And
Lane and Allison?
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Looking through my notes. Yeah.
And you've got it right there. That's hilarious. And I remember thinking, like, I almost feel bad for these two because, we've all got different audiences and like they're catering to something that is so not the Drew and Mike show audience or the Opie and Anthony audience.
Yeah, we used to get criticized something. I mean, it was very minor criticism because everybody loves a fucking train wreck. They love a pylon, but it's like you're going after soft targets. You're going after people that's what they're supposed to do, and it's like we understand they have a different music format that they have to cater to a different audience, but they don't have to be buy the prep service as if it was the Bible when they start the show. If they don't have that prep service in the morning, and we used to joke like it was, they're unscrolling the facts, assembly thing coming through there, and it's like, oh, here's today's celebrities' birthdays. Here's national whatever. Oh, it's National Pizza Day for the 5th time this year. That kind of thing,
dude.
That's the shows we went after. It's like this show sounds like that show in that market because they have the same prep service. Oh, they're owned by the same company. That's exactly why they all sound the same. But those were the reasons for the targets that we picked.
Yeah, it's the same douchebag. And you guys picked up on it so perfectly and just bashed these shows that we're doing. I had a female roommate at one point. She was just huge fan of the show. And I'm like, that is such a garbage show. And she's like, this War of the Roses. You have to listen. You're not going to believe. And I'm like, do you fucking think for a second that show is real?
Original?
Like,
yeah.
It's the original. And it's like, no, this is totally like she bought it, the whole thing.
You know how that works, right? How the War of the Roses works?
But please explain it.
For those who don't know, War of the Roses, it might have been at one time a singular station or a singular show, singular jocks bit. But it goes back like into the 90s, maybe the late 80s, where it was essentially, if you don't know, War of the Roses was a movie, Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner, and it was about how terrible their relationship is and what have you. This was sort of on that aspect, but then it turned into like, well, we're going to offer you free roses to send to somebody. Who would you like to send it to? And it is always a guy or a girl that was sending it to somebody that wasn't their boyfriend or significant other. And then all of a sudden they had the other on the line there, and that was causing a fight, and they were going to get divorced, or there was going to be hell to pay, whatever it was. It's a script.
Yeah.
The jocks, the morning show, whoever is handling it, records their voice or does it live, however they want to do it. All the other stuff is on audio tracks that they put together, and it's the same shit they send around, with the exception, I think, of a couple people that have their own team that do it. Mojo might have that. I know in New York, it's Hollywood Hamilton. He's been preaching that shit forever. Guy in the DC market was legendary, but he passed away several years ago. His name was Kane. And he used to do War of the Roses down there. So I think some of those tentpole shows had their own service doing it, so it didn't sound like War of the Roses in other markets. But yeah, it was just one of those things where it's like, here's the copy, here's the story. It gave you notes on your inflection, act surprised, act really angry, growl at the end of this, and then you play cut 17, and then this is the lady saying this. You respond here. And
So for those that don't know, there were industry magazines too, like Morning Mouth. And there were certain kind of FMQB,
Radio Inc. Yeah.
Radio Inc. Oh God, this is just a blast from the past. But it would, like, on the back of it would be like you'd see in a book, like someone like, oh, this is the best read I've had. And it would be morning show personalities from wacky morning shows all over the country going like, yeah, this War of the Roses guy, this is the guy you want to hire. He's the best in the business.
Yeah, they would place ads.
Yeah.
To make it look like they were articles, like you were, they're featuring this jock in Tallahassee this month. It's an ad they paid for to make it look like a column to put on there so that maybe this guy could get hired somewhere else, or they're trying to syndicate this guy. It was one of those.
Yeah. I remember being horribly offended. I used to get in trouble with, it might have been Radio Inc. or Morning Mount, one of those services that the station just had. And it was like, hey, Mike, you do our, whatever we were going to include, like every morning show that was a part of it or radio show had to give something content wise. It was like, hey, what did you do this week? And people would go, we did War of the Roses. It was a killer, blah, blah, blah. And cause we were doing a show like O&A, like it wasn't scripted. There were comedy bits that were written by Drew or Mike that were good. It was R-rated. It was topical. It was real. And we would call real people. None of that was ever set up. And I'd be like, this is my things would be 3 sentences long. It'd be like, this is an active phone number for this celebrity right now. Get it before they change the number. And I would just do 3 of those. And they'd be like, you're not adding enough stuff. They'd always throw Man Cow in as the suggestion. Look at what Man Cow does. And I'm like, Man Cow has 3 pages of garbage fucking jokes. I'm not interested in Man Cow's jokes.
I never understood the appeal to him because they were like, oh, he's a Chicago legend. And yeah, he was on in that market forever. But the initial heyday of him on that rock station in Chicago, when that went away and he moved to other stations, he never recaptured what it was that he had at that particular time. He never knew how to evolve out of the hacky, deep radio voice, talking like this, but trying to do shock jock humor.
Ugh.
And then he just did what a lot of other people have done when they don't know how to speak normal or communicate with an audience. They shift into politics. And it doesn't matter if it's like liberal or conservative, whatever, libertarian. they just shift into something and like, oh, politics is just speaking points without having a lot of information behind it. You're just giving surface level
Right.
opinions and point of views, and they go and they check out different publications, other shows. What are they saying? All right, I'm going to say that too because they're not saying that here, and I'm going to say that like as if it's my voice. And then he started getting appearances on Fox News and their local morning news things in Chicago
Mhm.
and stuff. And then he just kept. It was a series of. It was like tripping down the stairs. He's at this station, and then all of a sudden the station flip format. They ditched him. Now he's on this AM station, and that's not really doing well. Now he's supposedly this big free speech provocateur.
Oh, yeah.
He's all about. He was super conservative for a while. He was trying to rub elbows with Hannity and Fox News people and those kind of things. And I mean, it worked for a tiny bit, but I think everyone's just like, yeah, this guy is really
Yeah.
nothing in
Well,
those
when you
fields.
listen to when like I remember listening to O&A and the turd when Anthony would do and the car crash. And if you did that kind of work, you understood like the screeching of the tires was on this CD and the crash sound effect was on this CD. There was
And it
nothing.
took too long. They didn't know anything about timing and editing.
Yeah.
We're talking about an old man cub. I think it's on one of his CDs where he used to have this stunt guy named Turd.
Right.
And he was in a car and he was going to race this car and try to be like a human crash dummy. And he's sitting there and he goes, 75 and you're 80. It's like for as long as he's pacing this
Turd.
out as he's reading the kilometers, I mean the speedometer on
Yeah.
the air, it's like if you were going that fast, you wouldn't be at 60, then 65. You'd be at 90 already and you would have hit
Right.
the fucking thing.
Yeah.
So it took forever. It was drawn out and he goes, oh, I think I'm gonna crash. And then the crash thing starts. You can tell that crash starts up a bit higher than the background white noise of the engine of the car, and then the skid, and then he hits the thing here. Oh,
Yeah.
like and you're like, this is bad even for 80s radio.
Yes.
You know where that a lot of that shit started. This is
Yeah.
bad even for that. Like the 80s guys who knew how to do this stuff didn't sound that bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was all the stuff like I knew all the sound effects. Like I was familiar with the catalog,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that sold for obnoxious amounts of money back in the day, you know, to get all the different companies that had those sound effects and sounders and goofy morning show staples.
The best part about working at different companies and everything is copying all their production libraries and then never paying the license for it.
Yeah.
So that I had libraries that I still to this day have them that are, I don't know what they're worth now, but back in the day were like thousands of dollars. Like Brown
Yeah.
Bag was a big digital thing. It was just a CD you would get and have all those digital cuts that you hear on like 90s rock stations, alternative smashes, the hisses, the white noise, all that shit.
Yeah. Record
Like,
scratch.
all right, drop it in the burner, rip that there, drop that. How much
Yeah.
is it? Oh, this catalog is 20 CDs. That's perfect. I bought a spindle for $8 at Staples. We're going to spend the night burning these things. Now
Yeah.
I've got the catalog. And I just used to go every company I had, I'd find where the production libraries were because companies would buy or have the service have these production libraries. No, the production guy wanted to do as little production as possible. He would just throw the voices, the tags at the end for local news things, for local advertisements, something the morning show needs, promos, whatever, and then be done. He never looked at the rest of that catalog. They weren't coming up with bits and ideas of what to use these sounds for. I would go and take those books, the old CD binder books,
Yeah. Yeah.
flip through them, and I take them. I would listen to, this is how dumb I am as a radio person. I'd put them in my car as I'm driving home, and I'm sitting there listening. Track 8, what that sound effect is. Track 9. I had
Wow.
one of those like a spiral notebook, but it was the
Yeah.
notepad that would fit
Yeah.
in your back pocket. And I'd be sitting there while I'm driving, write it down, cut 27, this, cut 20, whatever, like there. And then I would go and I'd isolate those and put them in. I mean, this is just a pathetic person in radio doing this, but you go through those libraries, you take those libraries, nobody pays attention to that shit.
No.
And that was the
no.
big thing about this industry. For people who wanted to be the top of the game and be so successful, make all the money, be super famous, syndicated, whatever, nobody pays attention to anything. And all you
Yeah.
had to do was if you just stopped and sat there and watched how the office worked, watched how management worked, watched how the on-air people worked, you'd start seeing the patterns, or you'd
Yeah.
start seeing, the paths that they're all taking. You go, well, I don't like what that guy's doing. That manager doesn't know fucking shit that's going on here unless he's told. So you go, okay, I can outdo that guy. I can outdo that guy. How do I get around that guy? Perfect. Do this, 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 this. And all of a sudden you show up and like, where the fuck did this guy come from? Well, I
Yeah.
can do all of these things. Why isn't that our guy doing that? I don't know. It's not my job to care why your guy can't do it. It's my job to tell you I can take his job and do everything else.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for.
Honestly, Erik, it's my biggest regret. In all the years of doing it, I cared about the morning show and what we were doing there. And I think back now, like I should have paid more attention to what the music director was doing and what the programmer was doing. And like I knew them
Why?
all, I was friends with them all, but I couldn't be bothered. It was just like morning show, get the fuck out of here for the next morning show. And I wish I did
Were you
more
that
of that.
pouring out the door mentality?
No. We were there till 2:00, 3:00 in the afternoon doing morning show. Like we worked our asses off. We got the second we got done with a show, we were making phone calls. We would take news stories, look up people in those stories and call them.
Right.
And we would get unbelievable, but it was authentic. It was real. It's what I loved about the O&A show. And just so you know, I had this, it was an amazing thing. So I would do this morning show. And then when we were done, that was about the time the replay, when I first got XM Sirius in my car, it was when you guys were starting the rebroadcast at 2:00 in the afternoon. And first time I've got this satellite thing in my car. I don't know what this is. Oh, let's check out Howard, Howard. And I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get the Howard. Like Howard's way too into himself. It just wasn't my bag. And then I just kind of stumbled into this Opie, Anthony, and Jimmy thing. It was like, holy fuck. These guys are operating on a level that is above everybody right now. And so my day was done and I would listen to the whole show and I became like a super fan of this show after I got done doing my show. It's wild.
I appreciate that. I hear that time to time from radio people and sometimes from people that we've destroyed or trashed or we ruined their things. They got fired to put us on in their place or something like that.
Yeah.
It's very nice to hear that. I do love hearing that. The thing with that show was the content was first. The show was first, but the content was first. What went out on the air had to be what we all thought about. If it was going to be a bit or something like that, we would say, oh, we wrote a script that Voss, the comedian like Rich Voss, we had this, we would do little performances and stuff. It's like, Voss is going to read this script that we wrote. We'd tell you that it's a script. We tell you that, and they would do it live. And then Steve would take whatever we did on the air and then go produce the bit. So it's not like us going into the production studio, reading it off, and then they would put it in there and bring it in. A lot of the times, let's do it on the air. Hear how it came to be, and then here's the final version of it. And you're like, holy crap, you got to be a part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
The content was important. Everything else was a distant second. And by distant second, I meant what the company felt, what management felt, what the people on the show felt, if they were pissed off, whatever. That was a distant second. I don't care if you
it wasn't even a second.
Yeah.
It was like an afterthought.
What happened on the air during that time we had to be on was the most important thing always. And then past that point, we'll deal with it after the show was over. And who knows if we get screamed at, that'll be the start of the next day's show. And we'll go from there. It was very important. A lot of shows I think didn't know or just didn't have the opportunity to really be themselves or really go and try to do whatever they wanted to, maybe out of fear that they would lose their thing. They weren't big enough to do any of those things.
Yeah.
The only way you were going to get there, and O&A is a perfect roadmap of this, was that, they started where they were a small thing. They were a small thing at nights on Long Island, then got moved to the afternoons up in Boston where they made it. They just this is our one shot. We don't have anything else here. We need to give everything. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, well, we gave it a shot. We did everything we could. A lot of people don't do that. It's just like, well, I'm going to lose this gig. All right. But you could be losing millions of dollars by not doing that.
Yeah.
So you lose some of these sponsors. Okay, that sucks for the station. But you know what? Others will come in as your numbers go up, as your popularity goes up. I'm sorry, we don't have McDonald's or Toyota or any of those blue chip stock companies that are advertising here. I'm sorry, we're not going to do that. But look what we're getting from Steven Singer. Look what we're getting from these national betting companies. You're getting bigger companies, not that name, but you're getting them around the country,
Yeah.
locally and nationally, bringing in more money that's making up what you're losing from one spot of McDonald's.
Did you guys become virtually untouchable? Like the staff, everybody, because that's what I remember with Drew and Mike, where it was like, dude, management could have walked in on any one of us banging a hooker in the fucking hallway, and it would have just been like, just don't get arrested and don't, kill someone.
We weren't that. I mean,
not that anyone
based
did
on
that.
What we did, you'd think we were that kind of show.
Yeah.
But we had fucking Opie, 20 minutes into the show complaining that his blood sugar is low. He needs Kenny to get him his oatmeal and blueberries.
Yeah.
Jim talking about he's wearing an apnea mask and why it wasn't working last night. And he was out late doing gigs. And then, like Jimmy was the most debaucherous out of all of us stuff, but his stuff was nowhere near what around the radio show or any of that kind of shit. We're making fun of our old producer Steve C because he's drinking Monster energy drinks and eating cheeseburgers for breakfast. That's about as far as where everybody's lives were going. I got made fun of because I always had like things to pour into my bottled water, or I had different snacks, or I had Funko Pops, and that's the shit about as debaucherous as we got in our own
professional
lives.
Entertainers at the end of the day.
Right. But yeah, we weren't having things like, there wasn't drug problems around there. There wasn't people getting arrested. There wasn't people, getting caught with weapons or any of those kind of things. Nothing, drunk driving, none of that stuff.
Yeah. Yet still you were public outcasts or, viewed a certain way from the public,
because there's this weird thing around, I'll speak from myself. This weird thing around me involving that show where there to this day there's still a lot of people who like to take shots at me because of storylines and stuff that were on the air.
Sure.
Like, hey, fatso, and whatever. The show's been gone for almost 15 years. You'll survive.
Yeah.
But I've heard from people, it's like, you caused all your own problems. You did this, you did that. Yeah, I did do that. Well, if you didn't do that, you wouldn't have that. Yeah, if I didn't do that, you wouldn't remember this 15 years later. If I didn't do that, we wouldn't have had a great moment on the air. There was a lot of shit that people don't understand. I brought to the show.
Yeah.
It was going to damage me in not like financially or physically or anything, but just it just
was going to take a beating. You were going to take a beating,
right?
Yeah.
So it's like, why would you bring that to the show? Why wouldn't I bring that to the show?
Yeah,
that's going to kill at least half an hour and maybe an ongoing storyline for something with the show for years to come by bringing that. One of the things that I mean, to me, I think stands out the most. I'm at home. I'm in my home office. It's in the afternoon, early afternoon. I just got home from the station, and I'm working on stuff, and I hear this crash. I'm like, what the? It sounded like, did somebody break into the place? Like, what the hell was that? So I go running out. I'm looking around. I don't see what it is. I go in the kitchen. My refrigerator door fell off the refrigerator.
Oh no!
It's laying on the floor.
Yeah, the jokes are writing themselves.
So I just sat there and I took a moment because first I'm like, can I get this door back on? And I look and I'm like, oh shit, the hinge snapped, right? So I can't do that. And I'm thinking, the first thing was not like, oh my God, all this food's going to go to waste. I have to buy a new fridge, everything. I go, I need to get a photo of this to bring this to the show tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. So I went and I took a photo of the door on the floor and the refrigerator itself, showing what's in my fridge. I didn't care.
Yeah.
And then cleaned everything up, did what I had to do. And then I send a message to Ope and I go, you're not going to believe this, but this happened. And he goes, what? And I said, yeah, I have photos. I'll bring everything tomorrow. And he's like, yeah, don't talk about this. Okay. And then, even Hope says, "Why would you do this to yourself?" And I think I said it on the air. I'm like, because it's funny on the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're the guy on the show that should know this. Everyone else knows this. That's why we bring this stuff to the show. So I
Yeah.
brought it on there. They had a ball with it. Jimmy was talking about it broke off because I was having fridgy rides. Like I was holding on to it like a
Yeah.
like one of those horses on a carousel, like I was
Yeah.
swinging on the thing. It got turned into, we had great animators. It got turned into a cartoon. It became a whole thing. But
Oh, was
those
that like Coke Logic days?
yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, those are so
w-
funny.
So we would bring stories like this. If nothing else was going on in the world and the news that was more precedent, we'd bring our own things there. Anthony tells this the best. He goes, sometimes you come in the morning, it's like, well, we can't really talk about, it's the same shit with Obama, and then there's nothing really happening entertainment wise. What do we do? And then we go, well, got to go rack the brain, dig deep, and I got to bring out a story from the time I worked at doing air conditioning, and something
Yeah.
happened at this house, or Jimmy would talk about something from his life. Those were what we would mix in with the shows outside of what was going on in the real world. But you brought that stuff to the show to purposely make it part of the
Yeah.
show. So when people said you brought it all upon yourself and you're a dummy, it's like you shouldn't have said anything. No,
Yeah,
this
but you're
is why.
still talking about it. That it
This
served
one
its purpose.
you're talking about it. We were very successful. We had a very
Yeah.
successful run. My career was better for it. I'm
Yep.
living a better life for it. So it was not terrible at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can make fun of me, but that's it. You're making
It's
fun of me. Okay,
it's
go ahead.
it's funny how that works. Those slow news days, and I think I've heard Anthony talk about this over the years. And if you've done this, you know exactly what he's talking about. In like those are the ones when it's like I had no intention of telling this horrible story from my past, from my childhood, the time I did something like those things come out in those moments where it's like, well, we got to fill this time with something. And we could pound on Obama again, or
Well, Ant did that for a long time. That 6 to 7 hour was just like, all right, Ant's going to talk politics and what's going on with the news. And then we'll start the
yeah,
show at 7. And
yeah,
then when
yeah,
the show comes back at 7, we'll do the rest of the show.
yes, yes,
But no, there'd be stuff that would happen in the news or in entertainment or something weird out there. And you go, there's a part of that story that relates to me, or it
yeah.
relates to something in my life that or
I
somebody I
did that
know.
once.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
then it would also emerge from there. But you know how these shows work. We never had prep services. That was
no,
we never
no,
had a prep service. We were offered by every company we're at. It's like, well, we can get you. We don't. We have a whole staff. If we can't get our own shit from our own staff, then why are they all here? What are we doing?
yeah,
We had people that would comb the newspapers at night, and because when you go to bed doing a morning show, you go to bed. You're watching the 10 o'clock news. Maybe you stayed up to watch the 11 o'clock local news just to see what was going on. You go to bed. By the time you got up 4 a.m, the world could have changed. Something else
yeah,
happened that wasn't released at the night broadcast for news, or we're still going from papers at that time before it went
yeah,
all digital. You're looking at
yep,
the newspapers, and then in the morning you got the newspapers. You can go through and like, oh shit, here's more stuff that happened that didn't get announced last night. So you're constantly on this cycle of I need to keep checking the news. I need to inspect. Now with social media, it's never been easier
yeah,
to
yeah.
do show prep.
It's like it's cheating. It's almost like cheating.
I don't think it's cheating. I think it's a tool. I think it's great.
It is, but it makes it so that you have 4 million podcasts because it's
Yeah,
so
but not all
easy
of
to
them are
do that
good.
work.
Not all of them are good,
No,
or
no, no.
some are good and not getting attention because of algorithms and all that stuff.
Yeah,
But yeah, I get what you're saying. And for a while I thought that too, being radio people, it's like, well, the radio people are the ones that know how to do this. These other podcasters are just getting handed the stuff that we had to grind and, pave the way for all these years just to get to where we're at. Now they're at where we're at or surpassing us
sure.
in some things. I get it. But every tool that's out there is great if you know how to use it and then know how to describe it, how to talk about it. There are so many podcasts out there, Mike, as you know,
Yep.
that are ripping off a lot of different formats. A lot of the earlier podcasts were stealing we say this all the time. You were taking what Opie and Anthony were doing.
Yeah.
Comics figured it out because we would have multiple comics on
Dude,
our show all the
brilliant.
time. And they were all from different worlds of comedy. You know, sometimes we'd have Frank Caliendo in there with Patrice O'Neal, and you go, those two are totally different. Or you'd have Bert Kreischer come in with Bill Burr. You know, it was all these kind of different.
Dude, Patrice O'Neal with Gallagher is still like. I mean, like
calling Gallagher racist to his
like
face.
a broken man, like literally, like to listen to that from the outside. Like, there's no way you can script that. There's no way you can get
that's
it. Like
Patrice being honest and being Patrice. And that
dude
is what cost him a lot of his livelihood and made a lot of his livelihood because he never changed being him. He started to smarten up towards the later years of his life when you had all these other comics that were friends and far more successful than Patrice that were telling him. Kevin Hart was one of Patrice's oldest friends. And, you know, Chappelle would tell Patrice, Chris Rock would come on our show and he would tell stories about talking to Patrice. And Patrice, he would say, it's like, Patrice, how about you just shut up when you're in that meeting, sign the thing, and then go off half-cocked about what you want to talk about there. But
wasn't he on The Office? Wasn't he the original black dude in The Office?
No, it was him and Craig Robinson. They were the two guys in the warehouse next to The Office.
Yeah.
And Patrice lasted one season because he didn't get along with BJ Novak, who was like head writing and producing that show. And I think at one point told BJ to go fuck himself because he didn't know anything about comedy or something along those lines. He talked about it on one of the O&A shows. If I'm getting it wrong, I apologize. It's out there. But I know he had a problem with BJ, and that's why he was written off the show. So it was just then Craig Robinson, fucking hilarious and really nice guy, got the flourish because Patrice wasn't there. But it was those kind of things.
I wanted to say before we get off Patrice, I have said for years that it's funny. I made this heartfelt. I said this to Ron Bennington at one point, and he was like,
dropping.
Yeah. I had Ron. He was doing some tour with a bunch of comics. And Ron just dismissed it like, fuck that guy. Like, it was hilarious because I stand by this, that Patrice O'Neal was one special away from speaking for a generation. Like, whatever he was going to do after, like what he'd built on O&A, his debates with Opie or with Anthony, with Anthony, and then Elephant in the Room. What he did there, it was like, this motherfucker's next special is going to be one of those generational specials. Yeah. And we lost him. I stand by that.
Yeah. You're not wrong. I believe everybody feels he was at the cusp of it wasn't a matter of a lot of talent comics or whatever. We said, that's when I found my voice, or that's when he found his voice.
Yep.
Patrice always had his voice. Patrice's thing was that's when he found his platform.
Yeah.
So it was never about finding his voice, his identity. He always had that. It was finding the right platform that people were going to listen and pay attention to him. You're right. Elephant in the Room was that special where everyone goes, we need to see what this guy's all about. We need to know more about him. You're right. Probably that next one or the one right after that is when he probably would have hit and been megastar level comedian, and we'd never see or hear from him again because he would be too big. But back to the podcast thing, and then we can, I can wind that part up. I was saying it's like a lot of these comic podcasts were basing it off of what we were doing on O&A because Howard had comics on, but they were one-on-one interviews. And unless you had specific comics who broke the mold, like Bob Levy, Artie, Gilbert Gottfried, who to this day I still say is the best guest that Howard ever had on his show, was Gilbert Gottfried.
Yeah.
Because there were times I still go back and listen to clips where Gilbert would be he'd have him hang around for the news, and him and Artie would just be constantly derailing Robin and Howard and saying the most terrible things based on what the news, and then going into Jerry Seinfeld and Groucho impersonations and all that other shit. Gilbert was just there to cause problems for Howard because Howard never allowed anybody to stray off of where Howard wanted to go. Gilbert was the one who went, fuck that. I'm over here and I'm saying terrible things, and you're on the air. Howard can't control him. O&A had the comics on there as part of the show. They weren't doing their bits. If they came in, started doing their material, we'd be like, what are you doing? Stop doing your jokes, just riff and insult each other. The best were like Bob Kelly, Rich Voss, Bill Burr, Patrice. If they're all in the studio just shitting on each other, Open End used to say, it's like, we just sit back for the next hour. It's like, the show's
free
done.
show.
You just let them go, and what do you do? A lot of the comics started to model their podcasts around that thing, where it was 2 comics, 3 comics, 4 comics, all sitting there, microphones, but they don't know the give and take. They're all talking over each other. They're all trying to one up each other, but there's nobody there to kind of pace it and control the flow of those things. Then you had other shows that were kind of taking from O&A with the way they were doing their interviews and their everyday topics. And then you started to see people doing Rogan. You know, Rogan gives all the credit in the world to Anthony for the reason why he started doing his podcast and modeling his podcast, because how Anthony had his home studio, how he was doing it himself, what have you. Rogan is now the new beacon of media, entertainment, speaking, what have you. People, you can see the podcasts that are taking Rogan's approach to a lot of things. And then you've got the influencer stuff that's happening now, where they just have a fancy looking set, and you watch it and you go, some of these conversations are so inane, but they've got like 100 million followers. You can't do anything. They're just successful because they're successful, not because they're talented, not because they're interesting. They generate money in a way that none of us could do. None of the comics can do, just by being a person and doing like outrageous shit on the internet without any real context or personality. They're just famous, and that's just how it's going to be right now. That's the thing that's driving a lot of this stuff right now. But outside of all of that, get back to the other part, was with the podcast, they don't know how to prep. We all have these same tools. We all have the internet. I know you said it's cheating, but I find videos, I find articles, I find people's posts that I use for my show. And then you have that. You could just show it on your show and then be like, oh yeah, here's this, here's this, here's this. All right. Everyone can do that. But what's your take on it? What's the angle that you're doing? That they don't plan things out. It drives me nuts when the way the software and everything is now, where they're sitting there and you're on here. It's like, hold on, I'm going to pull this up on YouTube. Let me see.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there watching for 5 minutes while they're trying to get the window to show up on their screen. And you're seeing them try to play it on YouTube, and it gives so much away because you see the suggested bar on the side and like, oh, look at what these assholes are into. And then when the video ends, it shows you that little floating window of other things that they've been watching or whatever. And you go, motherfucker does watch us. I knew it. Look, there's an Anthony clip. There's this stuff right here. I knew that they're watching our stuff. It's how you get all this stuff, but what you do with it. How do you make fun of it? How do you make it interesting? How do you do all of those things? So everybody, it's kind of level that we all can start from the same thing, but it's how you progress from there. And a lot of shows are terrible at it. They try or they don't try. I don't know. I'm not putting much effort into investigating how they do things, but we all are on the same playing field here. It's how you make it work. It's how you make it interesting. And it's also the people you talk to, and also the host or hosts themselves. Are they being, I hate this term because a lot of young people use it and it loses all meaning, authentic. It's being, real and showing people.
But it is, though.
Personality.
It is authentic, though. There's nothing wrong with that word, because
it's just overused. It's overused by influencers, and it's overused by dummies that aren't authentic, aren't using it correctly. They're like, oh, it's really important to be authentic. Bitch, everything you're wearing is all from sponsors or people doing collabs with you. You don't do a fucking thing without an ad. Like, there's nothing authentic by most of these people.
Well, when I think of podcasting, like I literally bought studio equipment after like the same time Anthony started doing compound stuff on the weekends, where he would just drink beers, do karaoke, fuck around. The first podcasts, though, were, in my opinion, the Opie and Anthony show, when Jimmy joined and you started seeing the comics come in, not for a segment, but for whole shows. And it's kind of like the way Rogan talks about, like, you can fake it for the first hour of the show. You get into hour 2 and 3, and you can't fake that anymore. When you have 4 hours of Rich Voss, Patrice O'Neal, Bobby Kelly, like that, if they were coming in like, hey, at the 7 o'clock hour, we got Bobby Kelly stopping by. Like, okay, Bobby does a 15-minute hit, plugs his show, But when you're stuck there for 4 hours and whatever happens, that's the original podcast.
Well, no other
The-
show would do that
The
because
radio clock went out the window of traffic on the 8s and all of that shit was gone.
we could go after other radio shows, but we knew the comics couldn't because they needed those shows when they'd have to go to whatever city to promote their comedy
Upcoming
dates
gigs,
and stuff, right? Or if they're in towns, like, hey, we just added the second show on Saturday because Thursday and Friday and Saturday sold out, so we added the second show. I'm going on this morning show in whatever market to promote, be funny for a little bit, sell tickets. We understood that. We understood when Norton couldn't go after other targets because that affects Norton's career outside of the radio
and
show.
it did from time to time, didn't it? Didn't he get in trouble a couple time or two?
Once or twice he would find out from shows that like they canceled my appearance because of I guess O&A went after whatever. But a lot of shows, to their credit, would have Jim on and then ask him on the air about that stuff. And Jim would talk to them about it. He didn't sugarcoat it. He's like, oh yeah, we were just having fun. He would talk about certain things and he'd be like, oh, that was you guys. Oh, man, I had no idea. He never apologized for anything, but he would talk things out with them. And it's like, if you were smart enough, strong enough, to have Jim come on your show after, last year we kind of destroyed you for Jocktober or whatever, that shows improvement on them. That shows that they were learning from that and that they were taking chances and realizing they could be more than what they were doing by having Jim on, talking about it for a little bit, doing whatever. So the comics would have to do those kinds of morning shows around the country. We got it. We understood that. We wouldn't bring the comics in for a lot of this stuff. Especially Jocktober or whatever, unless they really wanted to and didn't give a shit about it. If they were at a level they didn't care about doing morning radio anywhere, they would come. But we understood all of that stuff.
Yeah. Professional courtesy.
Yeah.
Don't need to get you in trouble doing this. I get hit from people all the time. Like, you got to join the Dabbleverse. You got to get into the Dabbleverse.
No, you don't.
You've been on there. Drew Lane is on there.
I enjoy Drew's takes when he has Carl on. Carl will put his he'll clip Drew's show and put it up on his feeds and everything, so I get to hear it. I enjoy that. Drew has Drew's. I don't. You still get along with Drew, right?
Oh yeah,
okay.
For sure.
You never know nowadays when radio shows are over.
Yeah,
you never know
totally.
who talks and who doesn't. Drew has interesting takes. Drew is a fan. He's an observer. He loves to know the storylines. It's like watching a soap opera. It's like being a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
But you don't want to hop in the ring and want to be, go and wrestle, Kevin Owens. It's like, oh, I think I can do this. It's like, no, you can't,
Yeah.
Drew could if he wanted to, but he knows he doesn't need to. He wants to listen to it. He lets Carl do the reporting and bring this stuff in. Drew loves the Stuttering John stuff, which if you're not familiar with that, you might be better off not knowing that stuff. You might be better looking into it. Who knows? But he loves to observe it. He thoroughly enjoys it. So enjoying it from afar and then talking to people who are in that world is perfectly fine. Like if you had Carl on or if you had Shuley on or somebody on to talk about this stuff, that makes sense. And, because it's something big that's happening on the internet. Going full forward into that is it's like getting stuck in the La Brea tar pit. It's like you're not getting out of it if you step into it.
You know what I've enjoyed? I really enjoyed just in prep for you, I was just kind of refreshing stuff and it's like, oh shit, Erock was on with Carl and I think Adam Bush is really good.
I think so too. Yeah.
He's really good. He should have been a therapist or something. He kind of psychoanalyzes things. And I think he's usually right. And seeing Anthony on there, I really love kind of the Opie and Anthony stuff and hearing kind of what your guys' take are on Opie and what he's doing and psychoanalyzing it. Keep me the fuck away from Kevin Brennan. That dude just seems mental. Like I wouldn't want anything to do with that. The Stuttering John stuff, I can't figure out if that's a bit. Like, is he really that stupid?
No, he's a terrible person, Stuttering John. He really is an awful person.
Yeah, I don't know anything about him. I'm not trying to make a clippable moment here, but it's like
I know so many, and this goes back many years, even before they were focusing on John. I knew many comics when that would do Howard, would do us, or used to do Howard, but because they don't do Howard anymore, they were allowed to come on our show and talk to us.
Yeah, sure.
But I've heard over the years when it came to dealing with John, a lot of comics didn't want to talk about John. Not that they were afraid of him. And he goes, and it's been said now many times, so people know the personality of John. But they used to tell me was that he's like, I don't want to bring him up, or I don't want to get involved because all he does is talk about, remember that one time 20 years ago I did one thing for you, and he holds that over your head all the time.
Ugh.
Or he's always trying to, work his way into things that you're doing and borrow things, and then you see it happen. Like, I knew that before all this stuff was, and a lot of people knew that about John before the Dabbleverse started, and people started exposing what John does, and you go, there it is. That's exactly what they were talking about years ago. Why they don't want to deal with John, or they don't want to go after John, or they don't want to talk to John, because
Yeah.
John is like, you owe me for one thing one small thing I did. He does that with Adam Bush. He's like, I got him on Howard. And Adam goes, yes, you did. You did get me on Howard. And I did thank you for that. And that was an amazing time. I
Yeah.
don't owe you anything else past that point, but
Yeah.
yes, you
Yeah.
did. Adam never denied it. Adam never went after him and said he was a dickhead, never did anything for me. He's commenting on what's happening now, that you're publicly putting yourself out there and
Yeah.
displaying your awfulness as a human being and as a father online. That's what they're critiquing. And you put it out there like that, it's open season, because then you're putting it onto the public. You're a public figure, or as he likes to say, he's a celebrity. His credits are better than everybody else's. Great,
Right.
then you are susceptible to all the criticism, everything that comes with the internet and online media. That's what happens.
Yeah.
So if you don't need to be a part of all of that stuff, don't be a part of it.
Yeah. I've never understood that. Like, you owe me something, like you got me on it. It's like, okay, well then Adam would have had to have gone on Howard and delivered. Otherwise it would have been a total bomb.
Yeah.
Like, it would have been bad for John. Like, he doesn't, like, if I took great pride in my early days of, like, I was really into young comics. And so I would be like, Drew, we have to have this kid, Stephen Lynch, on. We need Stephen Lynch. And he'd be like, who the fuck is Stephen Lynch? I'd be like, trust me, dude. Let me play you a song. You're going to love it. We got to get him in. Stanhope was like that. And there's a few of them where it's like, no, you need these guys.
Yeah.
But I would never look at Doug Stanhope and go, without me, you would have never been on the Drew and like, what? Like, no, that was my job, was to, if I could bring something, you hope from time to time people bring stuff. It's interesting. I wonder if you guys had this thought too, and we'll get back to kind of some of this other stuff. But dealing with those comics in particular, you mentioned Gilbert Gottfried. I think of Doug Stanhope and what's his name? Bobcat Goldthwait specifically. 3 guys that came in studio over the years and were the most meek, quiet. Would you like a water? Yeah, that'd be great.
I don't know
like
if we ever had
in the office. They would be that way in the office. And then as soon as the microphone turned on, explode into what you know of Doug Stanhope or Bobcat Goldthwait. And certainly Gilbert Gottfried was that way. It was like, what's wrong with this guy? Is he fucked up or something? Just so. Did you have experiences like that too?
We never had Bobcat on, and I think either he never was offered, or we didn't because of his involvement with Jay Moore, and Jay was a friend of ours.
Yeah.
So we didn't have Bobcat on. Gilbert didn't explode. We actually had to like kind of pull it out of Gilbert. Gilbert would come in and he'd be like, hi, yes. No, he's very timid, very small. Wants free breakfast, wants free, drinks out of the fridge in the kitchen. He wants all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then he'll sit there, and because Jimmy was there, it's another comic. I think that helps with the comedians come in, because they all know Jim, and they go, oh, there's another comic. They don't have that wall in front of them that they have to perform. They don't have that wall of, I need to have my material ready to go to do it on the radio.
It's a safe space. It's almost like
it's exactly what it was a safe space for comics. They could come in, they'd hang. Jim would be whatever. He'd be kind of like the safety net and the permission for the comic visiting to be as much or as little as they wanted, and it was okay.
Yeah,
because Jim was there. So when Gilbert would come in, we'd talk to him for a little while, and then as soon as you'd rev him up, and then Ant would start going with some things, and Gilbert has a really horrible sense of humor, and then they would start going back and forth trying to who could make this situation the worst out of the comments that they're making. Then Gilbert would get going. We didn't really have it was mostly the comics that only knew how to do their set as their
Mhm.
way of communicating. That's the ones we had the problems with because they didn't know how to talk. They wouldn't let their guard down. They wouldn't just be people
Yeah.
because they couldn't stop doing it. There's a very famous story of O&A with the late comedian Richard Jenny.
Mm.
And he came in once and he just was doing he had a show on the UPN called Platypus Man at the time, which was based off a comedy bit that he had. And he was just doing all this material and they're like trying to get to talk to him as a person. And he's just still in stand-up mode. The second time he came back, they did what they called the prison interview, where they had him in the lobby outside the studio and they could see him and and he could see them. And then somebody walked over and handed him a phone and they did it. He had to stand in the lobby while he was on the phone looking into the studio while they were talking to him through the phone because they wouldn't let him in until he he appeased them enough to allow him to come in and that he wasn't going to do his material. He was
Yeah.
going to be a person. So yeah, if you can find that clip where Richard Jenny, it's called Richard Jenny Prison Interview. And
That's
he's just
hilarious.
looking through the glass on the phone. He's like, wait, so really we're doing it this way? I can't come in. They're like, no, we're not. You're not coming in.
Yeah.
This is how we're
Yeah.
doing this.
Dude, that's so great. It was so game changing because I remember that when comics would come in, they were doing a weekend at Mark Ridley's or at Chaplin's Comedy Club, and it was like, so we're coming back from commercial, and we'll bring you in, and it was like, do you want me to do 5? Like up from my, and it was like, ugh, God, no. Why would no? Don't do your material. Like no.
Right.
But you guys did it on a level that smashed the mold. I'm assuming that's all Jim Norton. That kind of was that bridge from morning radio to what O&A became.
Sure. I mean, yeah, you could say that Jim was definitely a major part for the success of Opie and Anthony. I couldn't imagine the show without Jim. Like
Yeah.
if Jim got fired, I don't know if the show would have been this. I mean, obviously it wasn't the same when Anthony got let go, but if Jim got let go, I don't know if O&A would have lasted much longer because he was definitely a buffer between the two.
Yeah.
Jim brought in a completely different energy and completely different level of just comedy and thinking for what a morning show didn't have normally for radio around the country. And to be honest, most of the time people just loved hearing people would get sick of the guests. They didn't mind the comics, but they would get sick when we'd have to have celebrity guests coming in all
Yeah.
the time, right? And a lot of the times we were in a spot where major celebrities were in the building all the time. And if we were getting offered Arnold Schwarzenegger or Jay Leno was going to be there or like the cast of The Walking Dead, we're going to talk to them because we like those shows. We like those people. We like their movies. We want to talk to them. There were times we had to take guests just because of publicists where it's like, well, we got to take this guest in order to get the bigger guest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
the same way with late night talk shows. It's like, yeah, Letterman would get Tom Cruise, but during, the springtime when they had shitty movies coming out, he had to take some of the guests for these other movies from the agency that were new to that agency, smaller guests on there. They'd be the third tier guest of a late night talk show so that when Tom Cruise's movie came out in July, he would be on Letterman.
Right.
It worked that way. So we had to play that game too. But having the comics on there was okay. The people a lot of times just wanted to hear us. They're like,
Yes.
how about a day with no guests?
Yep.
We would hear that all the time. Or if it was like, we just want to hear Jim and Ant going back and forth, just saying the most brutal shit to each other for an hour. And then, now it's hindsight, but people look back and say like, oh, Opie's taking phone calls and ruining the bit. And you go back and look at those things and you're like, yeah, he was kind of derailing it a little bit.
Dude,
but
it was, did you guys know that in the moment as a listener? You could hear it, and I swear to God, it was just like, shut the fuck up,
I didn't notice
dude.
it as much, I guess, as the listeners did, because while you're there part of the show, you're also doing a million other things. So you're
Right.
not focused on it. When you're sitting there listening, all you're doing is sitting there and listening to every nuance, every thing play out. And the listeners were hyper focused on things that while we were there and we were doing it, sometimes we weren't even seeing. Like the listeners would catch stuff, or
Yeah.
there'd be stuff later. Like when they would call in, and it's like we'd take a phone call, and it was like Jim from Texas is calling in. What's it? You guys are just going to blow past the fact that Norton said this a while ago. What?
Yeah.
Did he say that? And Jim goes, I didn't say that. And he goes, yeah, he did. And we go back in the computer, pull it, and there it was. And now that's a new bit because
Right.
Jim fucked up, or Anthony said thing, or one of us said something like, fuck, we were hoping that it went over everyone's heads, or they just ignored it and whatever. We were just hoping it would go away and the listeners would bring it back and it would become a thing. I didn't notice it as much while there. There were times I noticed, I'm like, why is he doing this? Why just let them go for a while?
Let him go.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And he would interrupt things like that. But then because everyone can go back with a magnifying glass and they're putting clips up everywhere, and you see these clips and you go, oh my God, he really was. But
yeah. What do you think that was? Do you think that was like, because in my opinion, it became obvious. There's an expert level of open talk, no holds barred, go for it, that some professionals can play at. Jim Norton could do it. Anthony Cumia could absolutely do it. And those killers that are comics used to dealing with wild crowds could do it. Okay. It wouldn't have been fair to throw you in that seat and go ahead, Erik, you do it. Like, that's not what you did. They could, and Opie couldn't. And so it's like he's almost sitting back, not able to play. It's almost like his show was taken from him in those instances.
Yeah, those are his words. He would say that. Yeah.
Really?
It could have been. That could have been what he was thinking at the time. But I also would look, if I was in his spot, yeah, maybe I would have felt that way, or I at least would have tried to contribute, because the only way you get better is throwing yourself into the ring and taking the hits and learning to block and learning how to throw punches and do all of that stuff. But then also, I'm making millions of dollars sitting in this seat. So if the audience is going to go nuts for Anthony and Jimmy attacking each other for the last hour of the show, sit there, do that. And if something comes up on the screen, maybe you go, hey, I think this will, maybe I'll bring this in thinking that this will help, or whatever. Learning how to do it instead of it's like nobody's paying attention to me. My show's being taken from me. You're making millions of dollars. Fucking let the show be taken from you, because when this is done, you could do whatever you want, or you don't have to do a thing.
Yeah. He's been saying the last couple weeks he's been giving you shit because you apparently have the best of. And
I'm done with that. I rarely ever talk about him, but because I did on Chrissy's show, then that's when people like the things I said are nothing new.
Erock, him talking about if Erock says if I act like a human being, he'll give me my life's work back. And I'm thinking the whole time, like, hey, bro, your life's work would be a fucking Jocktober bit. I'm sorry. Well, what are you talking about?
I mean, all right, I understand what you're saying, but that's like a listener point of view for that. For him with his life's work, if your life's work was so important to you, you would have had something implemented where you were getting a copy every day of a show, or hey, at the end of the year, give me all the best of bits from the year, or whatever. At the end of the year, I would do this because I took all the photos for the show, right? Celebrity photos, in-studio photos, whatever. At the end of each year, I would make a CD or DVD at the time of all the celebrity photos from the year. This one is just all Norton. Here you go. Anthony, here's yours. Opie, here's yours.
That's awesome.
It's all your celebrity photos from the year, because I would take them daily. We'd post them on social media, but I would also email it to them so that they had their copies of it. I mean, Jim was a fanatic for all of this stuff, right? So he had to have everything right away. But I would make these folders and archive things. I go, here you go. At the end of the year, here's everything that you had. Oh, I forgot I had these things. Like Aunt was appreciative. Ope would take them. I don't know what they would do with them, but I gave it to them so they could never say I lost this, or I never had it, or you didn't give this to me. What's going on? Oh, I did. Everything's there. Yeah. If this was your life's work, I would constantly be asking for a copy every day of the show. Email me a copy, put it in a Dropbox. It's never been easier now to get a copy of your show. Send me the video clips. I want the HD versions of this without the watermarks. Give me all of that stuff there. keep on top of it so that you had your own archive. Yeah, you have a staff that's archiving it for you, and that's great. That's a safety net compared to the company who throws everything out and doesn't give a fuck about that stuff. But you go the extra mile and go, I want my own copy too.
Yeah,
And when
make it
you've
part of your
been
daily
yeah,
job.
and when you've been asked many times, please, there's an opportunity that we worked here. Buy the rights to this. It's not that expensive. Just pay the money so that you have ownership. And it's great for down the line for negotiating with your contracts with the company where they're like, well, we're not going to give you this stuff. And it's like, great. Well, we're not going to let you play best ofs while we're off because we own the rights to the content. So we got to come to a different agreement now. Right.
Yeah.
So, and I'll give all this credit. And I've said this forever too. The most unlikely person in the world of radio taught me this. Bubba the Love Sponge. Right?
Yeah,
Back
down
in the
Florida,
late
right?
90s, I remember because I read this and then I heard audio of him talking about this. In the late 90s, he was at a station called 98 Rock in Tampa, and he was syndicated at that time, right, to several markets, what have you. He had a contract where I think he took less money because he was making millions of dollars at that time, late 90s and stuff.
Sure.
He took a contract for less money to acquire the rights to everything that his show put out. So once he did that, down the line, he was putting out DVDs, he was putting out CDs, he was putting out pay-per-view specials, he was doing all this stuff because he owned everything. Clear Channel licensed the show from him. All that stuff, if they wanted to use it, they had to license it off of Bubba.
Yeah, it's George Lucas. It's what Lucas did with Star Wars.
Right. So when that happened, I always remembered reading that. I think it was Radio and Records. There's another publication that doesn't exist anymore. But one of them, I remember this. I go, wow, I've never heard of that. And I always remembered Bubba did that. And that always sat with me going forward of like, wherever I work, make copies of everything.
Yeah.
And now people, it's like, oh, you stole this stuff. It's like, well, no, yes and no. Because if I didn't, this stuff wouldn't exist. Those companies would throw everything out or delete everything right away and they wouldn't exist anymore. You can't find archives of old radio shows because even the hosts of those famous shows, popular shows, don't have their stuff. And they're like, oh, I don't know, such and such took that care of that. My producer took care of that. You'd have to ask him where those things are. I've talked to the producers, old producers of Scott and Todd, trying to get some of their old archives for years. And they would tell me, oh, they were sitting on the computers there. And it's like, we didn't get copies of them, or they would blow it out every year to make room in the system for all of this shit. And I would, you don't have copies of this stuff? No, I don't. And you sit there shaking your head and go, if it wasn't for dumbasses like me that were taping them every day on cassette tapes and then transferring it over digitally, you'd have no archives, right? I was doing
that's
stuff for
crazy.
Scott. I was doing, you know the name Scott Shannon? You know who he is?
Yeah, sure. Yep.
Okay. So Scott is like the guy that got me into radio. Like hearing him as a kid was what set the fire in my head that I wanted to be in radio. Scott was the guy, people like to mock it, but he was the guy that created the morning zoo format, right? And he was good at it.
Mm-hmm.
All these other people that would duplicate and copy the format that he created were terrible at it. So that's why it became a joke. It's like, oh, wacky, hokey morning zoo stuff. Yeah, because all the people that didn't know how to do it were just copying what they were putting together and did it at a lower level. That's why it sounded like shit. Scott created this stuff, figured out the parody commercials, the character voices calling in, the sound effects, all those extra levels that radio didn't have were because he figured this out and hired the right people to write and create and produce all this stuff around him, right? So fast forward to the last several years. Scott's at CBS FM, post Scott and Todd. He's killing it in New York. He's doing fantastic. And like every company that's doing here, if you're too successful and if you've been there too long, they're getting rid of you. So they kind of forced him into retirement. And as we're doing these morning zoo reunion shows and best of things and leading up to his retirement from CBS FM, he has to put all this old stuff together. He doesn't have any of this stuff because, again, he was from a mindset in a time where they didn't think about these things. Yeah. I had a lot of this stuff. So I was brought in to put all this stuff together for him. So he had old clips from the 80s and the 90s and all of that stuff. All this. So it sounded like he had an archive. It was all my personal stuff.
They were really?
Yeah, they're all shit like this.
Jeez.
120-minute tapes of me taping on there. So transferring all of that stuff so that they had clips to play.
Where do you find the time? I mean, when you're dealing with hours a day.
Right.
Seriously, where do you catalog? I mean, a
This is what my
library like
late nights are for. I'm either playing video games or I'm cutting up stuff for archives. Like I have a
yeah,
show tonight that is when I'm done with you, all I'm going to be doing is cutting up video that I'm using for my show tonight. I'll do my show. When the show's done, I'll go have dinner, and then I come back and then I produce the show for iHeart and then for the video version going up on YouTube. I'll go to bed like 6 a.m. and then wake up sometime Friday afternoon and see the kid for a while and then do whatever else I'm going to do. I'm going to do
yeah,
archiving stuff, or I'm going to go play Phasmophobia or Sea of Thieves or something like that.
yeah,
That's where my time goes. When I'm not doing anything, I don't go out and party. I don't go out and drink or do drugs. I don't go out and I don't golf. I don't go
yeah,
guys' weekends. I don't do any of these things. I watch a lot of television and movies. I read a lot of stuff. I play video games, and I constantly have just archives of shit that I taped over my lifetime that I'm
yeah.
constantly trying to put out online and do
See,
all of that stuff.
you're making me feel bad now because I
Good.
have Drew and Mike's life work. Yeah, right. Nice job. I have
Right.
Drew and Mike's life work. I have their entire best of catalog, like on DATs and CDs, and I've never done anything with it. It was one of those where, yeah, see,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
And so I do occasionally in like a members area. I'll play a bit blind. I don't remember it. Half this shit I don't even remember it being done. And
Right.
we'll play it, and I call it Drew Mike Pause, and I'll just pause it and be like, if things come to me that I remember from then, I'll talk about it. And but I don't do it publicly because I know someone else technically owns it. You know what I mean? Like Greater
I
Media
don't
owns that.
I don't know what the legal situation is with Drew and Mike stuff. I know, without getting into it, I know why Drew had to change the name of the
Yep.
show.
Yep.
So I know that is a factor that could to play into all of this stuff. But if you can either come to an agreement or circumnavigate that all of that stuff there, they would probably, like, if you worked with Drew, you could probably profit
Yeah.
pretty well by digitizing a lot of this stuff, doing wraparounds about certain material, whatever, and putting them up as paywall material. You know,
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
retrospectives like that. There's a lot that for years I've had people saying, it's like, "Why don't you do your own best ofs of O&A, with your stories and experience and all that stuff?" That's
Totally.
a lot of work, and I
Yep.
have real work to do and a kid and all this. It's like I would love to. I don't have enough time. If I was getting paid to do that or I was making some kind of profit from it, I would do it, but I don't
Yeah.
wanna put in all that work just to see, "Oh, maybe it would happen," you know?
There's something there because you'd be great at it just because of the experience, and the by. I think there's value to that. I mean, we were there for all of these things during those shows,
Do
so
you still talk to, the other producers and stuff from Drew and Mike?
yeah, yeah. Not much. I talked to Drew the most, and he and
So,
I
yeah, maybe
text,
that's
and
something you can occasionally do, like a once a week thing where you're putting stuff
yeah,
out, on some kind of paywall,
yeah,
and, whatever money he makes in that could probably pay you, for your time of editing, putting it all together, so Drew can just come in with some notes and go, Remind me what this segment was. Here's the paragraph about it." And then you go, "Oh, yeah, okay." And then you just talk from off the top of your
yeah,
head, put that as the wraparound, make some production, put the bit out there, and that's it. It's just little chunks of the
yeah.
of
Little
show
snippets
history,
of life.
putting it out there and
What?
doing all that.
Yeah,
In the
it's
case
it's
of
worth
us,
a
is that it
conversation with.
changed. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 no. Go ahead.
Oh,
In the case of you
in the
guys,
case
what?
of us, it's changed hands so many times. Like the companies that did own it don't exist anymore, and the current companies have no record or archive or claim any ownership of it. So, I guess technically down the line they could say something, but they can't get much from it because of all the the
Yeah,
the, the emails, the paperwork, and stuff I have, where it's saying that they don't have it, they don't claim ownership of it. You'd have to ask O&A. Like when a company says you have to ask Opie and Anthony about it, it's like they don't have a leg to stand on. So, okay, cool. And you told another major company this that they don't have the rights to this stuff or the ownership of or whatever. It's like, okay, so it's up in limbo. So at worst, what? You pay a small fee and then they leave you alone because they're not going to come after you for this stuff. Um,
yeah.
if that was the case, like in my thing, I would have built a whole channel and been selling that shit, long time ago, but I never did because I wanted Opie and Anthony to take it. It's theirs. I have copies of it, but
Yeah.
I would like for them to have it, which goes back to the Opie clips you said you saw. I begged him for years to buy the stuff, to take these things, and he
Mhm.
wouldn't take them. And now all of a sudden, the last couple of years, because he's starting to see that's the only way he gets interest in his content and people viewing his channel is by posting O&A stuff on there. Now all of a sudden he wants that. You're 11 years removed from the day the show ended. And now
Yeah.
you're sitting there like, now I want, it's like, no, you haven't
Yeah.
been cool to me at all or anybody else that's worked there. So when he starts saying it's about being a human being, yeah, talk to me like a fucking person. There's been
Yeah.
plenty of other people, executives that we used to work with that tried to set up middle ground. It's like, I think we could come together and do these things. And I would tell them, I go, I agree, but he has to talk to me first, or he has to talk to any of us first. Set up a dinner, set up a meeting where we can just sit and talk. Let's
What do you
be
think that's
fucking
about?
adults about it, and he
Is that
won't
a
do it.
pride thing? What is that?
No, he's afraid. He's a
Yeah.
scared old man. He's afraid, he's insecure, and this isn't talking tales out of school, but he's constantly talked about his mom having mental issues for the longest time.
Yeah, I remember it.
I don't know, but maybe he's going down that same path, or maybe he thinks he's going down that same path. I think he is, definitely based on the way he acts, and he can't use a real voice and a real personality to describe
It's so
anything
weird, dude.
anymore. Yeah,
It's so
but
weird. Like having a conversation like this, like when I see him do his show, I feel bad for him. It's like, what are you doing with a camera facing the Glen, just like whispering in your, like in the basement of a bar? It's like, if I put no effort in,
he's
nobody can
hiding.
judge me. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like,
he's
it's a
hiding
hiding
from
thing.
his family, so because he's up before all of them doing that stuff, and if that's the time you wanna do it, that's fine, I get it. But
Sure.
you could have had a better setting. I know the layouts of his places. I've been to his places. He has extra rooms. He could have had a proper office or studio set up in one of those rooms with that killer view of the city behind him. It would be stuff like that networks pay millions of dollars for, to have that backdrop, right? He could have had something
Yeah.
set there. He doesn't. He didn't because he's afraid to compete. He's afraid to try. And he just doesn't want to be
Yeah.
compared to anything, because if he's being
Here's,
compared to something, then he's failing, or he's going to fail, and he thinks he'll look terrible. We all, I get, we all get told that, by people that, oh, your shit sucks or your show's terrible or whatever. But then you
yeah.
get a lot of other people that say, oh, well, your show's really good. I enjoy what you're doing. I pride myself that the production quality and the content of my show, I'm constantly trying to build more and more. I keep
Yeah.
working at it. I keep adding new features and new layers and new all of these things here. Same thing with Anthony. Anthony, his strong point is just his content. Him speaking
Yeah.
is what people are there for, not really the
I'll say
background. As long
this.
as the camera is good and the mic's good, that's all he needs.
Yeah. I'll say this about Anthony. What I've picked up from Anthony over the years, he's a genuine dude. And he's taken a lot of shots over the years. He's been beat on. He's been called everything in the book. And he seems like one of those guys to me, and you would obviously know more than me. He seems like one of those guys that wants, at the end of the day, he's having fun. He can't believe that he's made millions of dollars just kind of being him. And
Right.
he's never forgotten that. And he's not looking for enemies. He's not. And the ironic thing is, I firmly believe that if Opie would swallow his pride and literally go, okay, instead of making fun of Anthony getting a once a week AM gig at WABC in New York, like, and I wanted to mention, you're going to be,
Syndicated.
I think, syndicated after what, 48 hours? Like,
Yep.
remarkable. He's immediately got Jim Norton come in, I believe, April 13th. And then he announced that he got a text from you asking to come in. And he was like, of course. And we're going to beat the shit out of Erock.
Well, that's just the radio nerd thing in me. I wasn't asking to be on a show. I just wanted to
Right.
be in
Oh,
the
I know.
building. Because one, I haven't seen Norton in a while, so it'd be great to see Norton there and to watch that and to feel again like this is the show I remember. This is what I remember being around. But I have friends in all kinds of different facets of TV and radio, and if they have time, like, can I pop over there? Can I check out the studio?
Yeah,
Can I
totally.
take a walkthrough? They all say yes, because I
Yeah.
would do that for them when they were at Sirius. They'd come around and I'd show
Dude,
them all the studios and whatever.
the reason I got on Anthony's show in New York City the first time, Landau was doing the show as his co-host.
Mhm.
And I was going to New York and I said, hey, dude, I'd love to pop by and just see the studio. And he texted me back and said, I talked to Anthony. We'll have you on that. And I was like, have me on? Are you fucking crazy? And it was as simple as it, because I'm the same way. Dude, I'll come by and see your studio. I'd love to see your studio, see what the setup's
Yeah.
like. Like, we're nerds. You and I are absolute radio studio nerds with that kind of stuff, seeing it, all that. But where I was going with this is, my guess is if Opie reached out to Anthony and went, hey, man, congratulations on this WABC gig. You know, what do you think about me popping by when Jimmy and Erock come in and we just fuck around for an hour? I guarantee you Anthony would go, see you on the 13th.
Yes and no. If Jim was there, it won't happen. If he said
Really?
that to Anthony would say, yeah, come by. But
Yeah.
because Anthony gives zero fucks about any of this stuff. Is a lot of his stuff, even though people view it as shots and stuff, and some of it is, he's giving
Not really,
legit.
though.
He's giving legit criticism and critiques
And
and
advice.
advice to help him on some of these things. And but Ope's so, I don't want to say dumb, but
Yeah, it's how it comes off.
gullible.
That
He's so gullible that anything that happens in the chat room on his live stream, he takes as gospel.
Yeah, it's weird.
And you look at some of these things, there have been times when I was still working with Ann at Compound, and we would get sent clips all the time if Ope said something or what have you. And we would look and we'd go, there's nothing really here to comment on. And we'd show Ant and he goes, yeah, I don't care. It's no big deal. Or if there's something, it's like, oh yeah, let's play it. Let's see what we can do with it. Okay, fine. But it's always been people putting shit in the comments, in his chats and whatever, that Erock said this, or Jim and Sam are doing this, or Anthony's trashing you again. And you go, here's how you handle this. Oh, it's like, you were way more successful in this business than I am. I'll give him that. But I've been around this for almost 28 years or something.
Yeah.
I've been with major shows, New York, national, all this stuff. I've seen a lot of shit. I know a lot of stuff. Dude, you just go, well, did he? Or what did he say? And they put in the comments, whatever. All right, well, you know what? Somebody send me the clip. If you got the clip, I'll play it right now. Let's take a look at that. Or I'll go and look for the clip. And if that's the case, I'll address it tomorrow. That's all you had to do.
Yeah.
Right. And then those people go away because they can't send you the clip of what they're saying, or he can't find the clip of what they're saying. So then it goes away and people are like, well, he's not falling for it anymore. He does it every time.
That strikes me as mental illness, though, because that's just like inherent in all of us. If someone were to write me and go, dude, did you hear Drew Lane shitting on you on his show today? I'd find it funny, first off. I'd make sure I listened to it before I had any comment.
Right.
Like, there's no way I would assume that Bill in Livonia is telling me the truth. And like, no way.
And I don't care that you're paying me $20 super chat. That just shows me that you're paying it so that I will definitely put it on the screen and think that I'll go for it. I'm like, oh, really? Was he? Let me find the clip. Where's the clip? Somebody send me a link. Let's talk about it. If this is the case, let's do it. I'll laugh at it like you. But if I can't find the thing and go, yeah, the guy was full of shit. And if it was something really bad, I would reach out to the person and go, hey, is there an issue? Somebody in my chat said this. Did that? And they would tell me, no. Oh, yeah, we were talking about the time you did this. Oh, okay. That's no big deal. That's all it takes to diffuse it. And he falls for it every time. And it's sad. And
what do you...
I went from the point of being annoyed and angry with him to just kind of sad and pitying him a little bit to now it's numb. The only reason this lately this thing's been going on and I'm already done with it was because I was on Chrissy's show. I mentioned some stuff and this was new to people. It's not anything new that I've said before, but it's new to people hearing it on that platform. Then it went around everywhere and then Ope's like, oh, my life work, he's holding it hostage. It's like, Anthony knows the story. Norton knows the story. Everybody involved knows the story that I've constantly offered them everything. Yeah. And they all went, no, I'd rather you hold it. Because they either have moved past it or if they want it, they know they can come and get it from me because it's in a safe spot. And that's where it's going to remain. Him, falling for this shit all the time. My life's work, like I said earlier, if it was your life's work, you would have had other things in place to make sure you had copies of these things. Or when you got fired, you would have said, I want a copy of a hard drive of all of this stuff. I would have given it to him at the time. Or
Yeah.
maybe not, because the way things ended at that point, I said, you'd have to talk to me. But here we are. He got fired in 2017. We are what, 8 years, 9 years, 6 years?
Something like that.
Something
Yeah,
like that.
2025. No, and honestly, Erock, I don't mean to start anything. It's just
How
curious
dare
to
you,
me.
Mike? Fuck you. And
I know.
No, whatever.
I know it's curious because it seems like there's such a lane there to like, I don't get from Anthony, from you, I'm sure from Sam. I don't know the story with Jim. I'd love to hear it, but
Jim never mentions Ope ever.
That's
Ever.
crazy. Like,
Ever. Has never talked. If somebody has asked him about it, there's a clip of Anthony and Jim on Legion of Skanks, I guess a couple of months ago. If you're not familiar with that show, it's Louis Gomez, Jay Okerson, and Dave Smith. And they talk about the O&A, doing an OAA reunion. And have you talked about them? And Jim goes, no. It's like, I haven't. Like, he'll address the subject if asked directly, but doesn't mention Ope, never talks about Ope, never reacts to anything.
Why is that? What
Same
was
thing
there
with
like
Sam Roberts. I mean,
there,
I don't listen to Sam's show. I didn't really listen to when Jim and Sam were a thing, but there were no clips ever that, because now it's like you don't have to go looking for shit anymore. There's so many people out there ready to clip and tattle on people for saying anything that it's readily available. I guess, like as Mike would call cheating, because it's all there and easy.
That's the wrong word.
You would never hear anything of Sam or Norton talking about Opie ever.
Why?
Ever.
Was there like a thing? Was it just like, fuck this guy? Dead to me?
That's where we're all. Well, yeah, there's that. Well, Jim is, I know Jim's that's his mindset. I'm not.
Was there a moment? Was there a reason? Specific
just things. Yeah, he didn't. I'm guessing Jim just didn't like the way things ended. The Opie and Jim stuff didn't end well. That about a month before our contract ran out, Ope disappeared for a month. He saved up all his days for the year, didn't take any time off, took an entire month or so off at the end of the summer. And we were forced to, I had the president of the company tell me, you cannot run best ofs for a month. You cannot do that. It's like, we'll let it go this week, but after that, you guys have to come back.
Live programming.
We had to figure out something to do. Norton's there. Norton can host it, but Norton can't do it all the time because that wasn't his role. Let's get some guest hosts in there. And we did. We had Jerry Springer hosting shows. We had Kevin Smith hosting shows. We had a bunch of different people coming in. And then it got to the point where Jim's like, well, we're all here. Sam can do this. Sam can sit behind the board. You're on that board. We'll just do this. And that's how Jim and Sam were born, because Ope disappeared for a month. Yeah. Had Ope not taken that month off, Jim and Sam may never have been a thing, and it never would have gone down the path that it had. So he caused these problems for himself. And then he came back for like 2 weeks and then called out sick on the last day of our contract. Ope didn't show up. And then, we were in kind of a limbo. So they were just letting Jim and Sam host for a little bit. And then they said, you know what? Screw it. It's now the Jim and Sam show. So Jim and Sam were given the morning things, and we were told Ope's not coming back. He refused to come back. So okay, this is what's happening. So we're doing Jim and Sam for about a week or two. And then all of a sudden I get word that Ope's in the building. What do you mean he's in the building? Somebody down at the other end of the office called me and said, Ope's sitting in a conference room right now with the president of the company. And I go, okay. And she's feeding me all the information because I can't walk down there and look, nor do I want to, but she's as a desk near there and she's telling us everything that's going on. And their meeting lasted maybe 10, 15 minutes. The president, he pushed this paper over, got up and he walked out. And Ope sat there with the paper, got on the phone for like half an hour, sat in that room by himself, then finally got off the phone or whatever, signed the thing, threw the pen, and then walked out. And that contract just sat there. And then the next day I got a manager coming in saying, Opie's coming back. He's doing afternoons. You're going to be running a show. This guy and this guy are now your staff. The other guys from here are just going to be doing Jim and Sam. You guys are going to go and do Opie's thing in the afternoon. So then they split the staff on us because of all of this. And that could have been why, from around that time is why Norton stopped talking or
Yeah.
caring about Ope. And then Ope's never shut up about how much he's hated Norton, hated Sam, hated Anthony. It's been
Yeah.
nonstop.
That's crazy.
So
It's
nobody
crazy.
talks to him. And now everybody's at the point where we don't care. We're
Yeah.
completely I was the last person to care about anything that was
Yeah.
going on with the dude. And because I said those things and it actually got his attention and people were popping in his chat saying, Erock destroyed you, or Erock said he's not giving you these things here. And then he went on this whole little thing that I went on. Carl asked me to come on. He's like, do you want to address this? And I said, yeah, that's fine. I went and I addressed because I didn't see the clip that Carl had. I was watching for the first time on Carl's show.
Yeah.
Addressed it. And then I said, all right, I'm done. I don't need
Yeah.
this to continue. I don't need to make everything about Ope stuff, which is what he's hoping for, the back and forth to get the attention on these things. I'm done. I said
Yeah.
my piece. It's nothing new. None of that is new information. It's new to people because they haven't heard it, but it's not new information.
Well, it's kind of
I'm
wild.
done.
It's wild because I've noticed over the years that you have almost painfully gone out of your way not to say anything, not really take any shots. It's almost like a soft spot there for Opie, that you've always had. At least that's my interpretation.
Here's the thing, and you can go back and watch the clip WATP from last whenever you're watching
last week.
But from the week of March, second to end week of March of 2025. There's me on WATP.
Who are these podcasts?
I've always said he gave me an amazing opportunity, both him and Anthony. Ope got the ball rolling, but it was both of them to approve that. They gave me an amazing opportunity. I've never not thanked them for that. I've never forgotten that. I think I've gone above and beyond everything I could do on that show and for them, both on air and off the air, to show gratitude, to show my appreciation for all that. But that was over 20 years. Oh, Jesus, 21 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe even 22. I don't remember the time frame, but it's a long fucking time.
Yeah.
I've more than paid that back.
Yeah.
The thank you for it. And when he said those clips, and it's like, I met him at a fucking Cracker Barrel. Like, yeah, because that was your decision. You didn't want to get off the highway in West Palm Beach to come meet at a normal spot to talk about. He's like, what kind of place can we find on the exit on the highway?
Yeah.
Okay, that's weird, but all right, that's what we did. And because of that meeting, I got this opportunity, right?
Yeah.
I've never forgotten that. I've always been appreciative of it. But as Carl said, this is like Stuttering John. How many times do I have to keep thanking you for that opportunity? 20-something years ago. I've done that. I've moved on. You went in a different direction that nobody else wanted to be a part of. And why do I still have to be nice to you?
Dude, it's
I think
weird.
I've been nice to him by not saying anything, but I don't need to carry his favor or be kind to him.
Dude,
I also don't need to be a jerk. I'm done. I've tried. You've fucking failed at every turn. I don't want to do this anymore. So unfortunately, this got new life because of the comments that I made. None of it untrue. Yeah. But it's not enough to keep saying like, hey, I'm going to reach out or text the guy, whatever. And by the way, I'll add this. His life's work is, I saw the clip. Am I being enough of a human being? No, by you acting like that, you're showing how terrible you are to everybody else. You're showing your hand that I was completely right and everybody else is right about everything we have said about you, right? But if that was the case, don't you think I would have heard? It's been almost 2 weeks. I would have heard from him on this. I have not. Not looking to reach out to him.
Yeah.
I was not expecting any kind of text or call from him. I told him that's why he didn't have what he's looking for, because he wasn't acting correctly. And if this was the case, if this was so important, he's like, I'm trying to act like a human being in order to get my life's work back. Wouldn't you have started the process? You haven't. I don't.
Yeah, you would think. It's funny, Erik. We all have an origin story. Mine. I knew a girl I went to high school with who was a babysitter for someone at the radio station and got me an interview for an internship. Like, I don't feel like once I got in the door, I did I built a career. I don't feel like I owe this person who got me an interview for an internship anything more. It's the same kind of thing. Like, we all got a boot in the door somehow. I don't feel any sort of like loyalty and 20 some years later, like, it's just weird. It's just a weird thing.
And
to have that kind of attitude, like you owe.
That attitude
I don't know.
is warranted, or that response is warranted if all I was doing for the longest time was shitting on the guy, right? And you would say, I
Right.
gave you an amazing opportunity a long time ago, and this is how you're going to treat me for that's where that response is warranted. I never talk about him, or I try not to.
No.
Carl even said, he's like, I've asked you
No.
to come on many times and you wouldn't talk about him. Yeah, that was by design. I wouldn't shit on Anthony. I wouldn't shit on
Yeah.
Norton. I don't want to. I moved on. We've all moved on.
Yeah.
And to act like that, like all I've done was attack this guy and made his life miserable, when that's not the case. That's not the right response to how everything has been going down. So that's
No.
why everything is incorrect. And if he wants to correct that situation, he's got work to do. I've never asked for anything unreasonable. I'm not wanting money. I'm not wanting ownership. I'm not wanting a lot of these other things here. If it wasn't for me, this wouldn't even be at this situation that you could even get your stuff. And you still haven't gone the correct thing to get your stuff. I don't care. I don't care at this point. Even if he did the correct thing, I don't know if I'm going to answer a text or a call from him in the future. I don't think so. I've moved on. I've got a family. We've all got families. We all have new career paths. We're all doing other things. We're done. You're in the past. This is not important to anybody anymore. Stop.
There is it is interesting. I think there's 4 or 5 days left in the Hall of Fame nominations, Radio Hall of Fame. What is it? RadioHallOfFame.com. And they've opened it up to the public.
Yeah, I was surprised
and
to
I
find
appreciate
that out.
the fact that
when I found that out, I went, holy shit.
Yeah. Well, I was glad you tweeted it out. That's how I saw it. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I think it would be awesome if people listening here, people can share whatever they want. To nominate Drew Lane, Mike Clark, Greg Opie Hughes, Anthony Cumia,
Jim Norton.
How cool would that be? To Jim Norton, obviously Jim Norton. I think that would be so cool if the listeners in New York and, well, you guys were syndicated for a long time, so everywhere, and the people in Detroit to take the 3 minutes it takes to fill that out and nominate these shows that were absolute behemoths in their markets and their times.
It's definitely worth it. And if they look, a lot of those awards are bought and paid for, like the Gracie Awards. I know that means a lot to women in broadcasting, but I know for a fact that the ones who constantly keep winning or getting the nominations are because of certain companies that are the main sponsors or facilitators for some of these things. And that's why those people are getting those awards. I don't want to take those achievements away from the people who won, but the whole system of these awards are all bought and paid for. It's not legitimate awards. So the fact that they open this up, and if we could have flooded the thing to have Opie and Anthony and Jim Norton nominated for this thing, and they have to acknowledge it, fantastic. Then I've done all I could with that. And if they have to make that mention and say that was thing, because those radio institutions would never include, like, they might include Howard, but they'd never include any show that was part of that genre. They would never include Opie and Anthony, Ron and Fez, Drew and Mike, Don and Mike, Bubba the Love Sponge, John Boy and Billy, Lex and Terry, those kind of shows that made maybe Bob and Tom, because they would
Bob
be in
and
there.
Tom,
but
probably.
You know what I'm talking about. These shows that paved the way, made unreal, unprecedented entertainment and strides in the radio field. They're not the ones getting nominated for any of that shit ever. So if they have to acknowledge us because of the audience like that, that's a win in my book. Because I know we were never going to win a Billboard award or a radio records thing, because all those things kept falling apart. They were going out of business. They're never going to acknowledge us. If I could get it to that point where they have to acknowledge us, then I feel that I've succeeded with all of this.
Dude, I think even a
Yeah,
nomination is a
it's
win.
exactly.
You know, like I remember early days, not to pat myself on the back, but people nominated the podcast for podcast awards. And we got nominated, I don't know, 8, 9 times, never won. And it was like, yeah, then it gets into gamesmanship. So you flood them, listeners flood them, and you get a nomination. Now you're part of 4 or 5 shows or something. And it turns into, I'll have you on my show to get your audience to vote for me. And it was like, I didn't play any of that shit. I wasn't going to do that. And so even the nomination, if you get tens of thousands of people that go Opie and Anthony, Drew and Mike, who name the show, because you're 100% right. It's like get an Oscar award going to a comedy. It's just not. They're
Right.
not going to do it. It's not going to happen. It might be the best movie you've ever seen. It's not going to happen.
There's companies that have podcast
there's
awards,
no.
and the ones that are always nominated and that win are always famous comedian podcasts, famous celebrity podcasts. Oh, these celebrity podcasts won, or these particular podcasts won. Let me see who are
Right.
the owners or the producers of the iHeart. Oh, so that's why they won the iHeart Podcast Award. That makes a lot of sense, because I
Right.
can't imagine anyone's really
Right.
giving a shit about the Paris Hilton podcast. I never hear anybody talking about it.
Right.
You hear people talking about Rogan. He gets nominated and wins several times. He's never there to claim the award. He never sends anybody there. They
No.
don't acknowledge those things because it's all bought and paid for. They're not legitimate things.
Yeah.
So the fact that if we
Yeah.
could get any of these shows mentioned, nominated in the system there
Nominated.
is a win for this genre of talk radio.
Yeah.
It just doesn't get the
Well,
respect that it
I
deserves.
and the fact is they were Hall of Fame caliber shows. I don't care what anyone says. I know the industry. I know what kind of content on a daily basis shows like Drew and Mike and Opie and Anthony and Jimmy obviously were putting out. And I've been telling Drew literally to his face for 20 years, this is a Hall of Fame show, right? And he's always humble. He probably won't mention this himself, so I'll do it for him, because that's not the type of guy he is. I'd be surprised even if he did. But I've been telling him for a lot of years, dude, this is a first ballot Hall of Fame show. It is. Probably won't get that recognition, but it is. And he's always humble, always says thanks,
that
man.
show, I knew
But-
of Drew and Mike forever. I didn't get to hear a lot of the stuff because I wasn't in Detroit and you guys weren't syndicated. So
Right.
I didn't get a chance to hear much, but I always knew of you guys because, you were always this legendary show that was killer in Detroit, but also known for being the show that Howard never beat, right? So Howard
Yes.
never beat
Yep.
you guys in the ratings for all of this stuff here. And I don't know if you guys were, crowing that out to the public, but a lot of the publications in the radio media always talked about Drew and Mike and how successful Drew and Mike was. And there's no reason that Drew and Mike shouldn't be getting the attention that they deserve. And it's a weird group that we're all in, where Drew and Mike in a major market, #1 show forever, beating the biggest syndicated morning show of all time consistently, never would get noticed or nominated because they're a one market show, even though it's a major market, one market show. Us in the #1 market, syndicated nationally, syndicated internationally with stations in Canada, syndicated through satellite, right? Every tier of the business
Yeah.
wouldn't get the acknowledgement because of the type of show that we did. We're all in the same group,
Yeah.
no matter what level of success that we had. They look at us and just go, why would we acknowledge you? I'm sorry, we only made billions of dollars for all these stations and all these companies doing what we did for as long as we did. And you don't recognize us because we're not, Bill and Sally in Minneapolis, some safe show that we can put
Right.
on there. And because that's the show we're trying to push in that market, so that
Yeah.
for marketing, all
McDonald's
of
won't
that stuff.
advertise.
One of the
Yeah.
things I'll bring this into too, Scott and Todd, okay, is a weird and anomaly of the show. Now, I loved it because I loved Scott, and I always had an appreciation and understanding of Scott. He was a mentor to me, still is to this day. for the things that he created, the concepts he executed and came up with, and he always gave me advice and stuff too. I can never not thank that guy enough for everything he's done for me. But when I got to work there, I've never liked his partner. His partner was a dick. He was a dick to me. I've seen him be a dick to a lot of people, but because he was a dick to me, I never forgot that. And I always made it my mission on WATP that anytime stuff came up about Todd Pettengill, that I will find a way to destroy him and make him look terrible. Drew told me that that's what got him into WATP, was hearing the episode I did with Carl where I was exposing Todd's new venture after getting fired from the radio. That his podcast was not what he was presenting it to be, and that his website didn't have the right security permissions. So I found shows in advance, and he was talking like we were playing shows up until Christmas, and I was giving Carl, the information. I said, "Here's the bonus thing. Here's his shows after New Year's." Carl's like, "What?" I go, "Yeah, he already recorded the next week of shows after New Year's." And if you were to listen to them, you would think, well, if you recorded the shows, they'd be kind of generic. Maybe they did it because they had guests that had a movie or a book or a TV show that needed to come out this week. So that's why you record this. Yeah, that's why you would do it.
They'd be evergreen.
No. The show started talking about what they did on New Year's Eve, how they spent their Christmas vacation.
Oh.
We played this stuff. It was December 19th when we played this stuff. That stuff was produced and ready to go, which means he recorded it probably Thanksgiving break or during the beginning of December for a month ahead. And he's talking about watching the ball drop and how things were going. Like this, there's no way you could even predict the shit he was talking about. So when we put that on there, it was a huge magnifying glass on this guy. Like, this is the guy that got Scott kicked off his own show, took over the show and tanked it. Like
immediately.
It was such a beautiful disaster of how he forced Scott out, tanked his show, and Scott went across the street to CBS FM and was consistently number 1, 2, or 3, depending on the ratings book, for his entire 6-year run. Todd was nowhere even near the top 10 in New York. He was down by 20.
Yeah.
The station did. Now, the reason why I'm saying all this, Scott and Todd was an anomaly because it was taking old Scott concepts from Morning Zoo, making them more modern for the 90s and other things they were doing. Todd had his fucking phone scams and all that other nonsense. But for what you could say about the hokiness or whatever with Scott and Todd, they had a run for like 22, 23 years. And you go, well, how did people listen to that show that long? They billed through the roof. They were the pillar of those blue chip advertisers. They had McDonald's, they had Disney. They were constantly doing their shows either live from studios at Disney World or at Universal Studios. They were doing cruises. They had, the major fast food tie-ins, major supermarkets, and all that stuff that you would kill to have. They had. So for whatever their ratings were, it didn't matter because they billed through the roof. Mm-hmm. So if that station was making hundreds of millions of dollars because of that morning show, but they were only coming in anywhere from 8th through 12th in the market, it didn't matter what their ratings were because they billed like crazy.
Yeah, they sold.
That show should be in the Hall of Fame too. I mean, Scott's already in there, legendary broadcaster, and he's already in there. But that show, for what they pulled off and how they did it, should be in there as well. I'll give that show all the credit in the world too. For figuring out how to make all the money and have none of the audience that deserves it for making all that money. But good on them.
Well, we had advertisers probably like you run from us. And I remember when Wendy's came groveling back, like, shit, this show's just undeniable. That's where everyone's listening, and had to come back. But for the longest time, and you plowed through that. It was like, all right, well, whoever wants to be here can be here then. Fuck it. And that was kind of the attitude. Like, we're doing stuff that people want to hear. That's good enough. When Howard came to Detroit, it was like, I remember the articles. I remember Howard on the air. He did his famous, like, tombstones for Drew and Mike, like all that kind of shit. I remember being on the streets and people going, it's fucking over, man. You guys are done. You don't even know what's coming your way. And, here we are just to show. And it's like, that motherfucker didn't make a dent, not one ratings book. And he was gone in 6 months. And no show in the country stood up to Howard Stern like that. And Stern was gone. I might be wrong about how many months it was, but he was gone. And it was during the height of Private Parts, where he had a book, he had a movie, he had the #1 show in the world. And it was just like, he's talking about us on the air and how he's going to fucking destroy the show and mock funerals and nothing. Detroit said, fuck you, dude. We already have our show. It was wild. Wild.
Yeah, I think O&A stood up to him when they had to come to New York. When they were coming from Boston to New York, they were supposed to be the afternoon show on K-Rock in New York, which was Howard's station. And Howard did not want them at their station. So that's why they got pushed to WNEW to be on the afternoons there. Sister station owned by Infinity. They were there, but they could keep tabs on them and can kind of suppress them a little bit so it didn't take away from Howard. Because Howard's thing in New York was Howard was the station. It didn't matter what was on after Howard. It never.
That's how we were in Detroit.
Or build the money that station did. That station made money because they were the Howard station.
Yeah.
But Howard made the most money for that station during the time he was on, which is why he could go past 11:30 on his satellite and stations wouldn't take him off.
Yeah.
I used to
hear
stories from people who did middays at other stations, and like I couldn't start my show until Howard was done. Like I'm supposed to go on at 10, but Howard was going on till 11. So they don't take Howard off because that's where all the money and all the advertising and all the ratings were.
Yeah.
But O&A stood up to him, even from their own station, like the station that they own, competing with him. They stood up to him. You guys stood up to him. Everybody else's game plan was, oh, Howard's coming, just ignore him. If you don't pay him any attention, nobody will pay attention to him. And it always failed. He was that one anomaly that you had to address it. Whether you went full balls to the wall or just at least acknowledged it, you had to.
Yeah.
And a lot of them didn't. And that's why so many other stations and other shows failed and tanked because they didn't acknowledge him.
It was spectacular to listen to O&A just battle. I want, because you guys were in the same building with Howard at one point. I mean, at Sirius. What was that like? Did your shows get along at all? I mean, it seemed like it was personal with Opie and Howard, maybe.
It was. It was. For the longest time, Anthony went along with it because that was the show, and it's like, well, if Howard's going to attack the show, then we'll do that. But the desire to keep it going, to have this long-lasting hatred of Howard, that's all Ope. That's all Ope.
Yeah.
Jim didn't give a fuck about any of that stuff. There were comics we couldn't have on the show because they were regulars on Howard, but they were good friends with Jim. Like Jim knew them. Like Jim Florentine, great guy, great comedian. Was a friend of the show when Howard changed and stopped having the comics and everything on. Jim was allowed to come on our show. But Jim and the Jims were roommates at one point in the early 90s, living in a shithole apartment in, I think, like Hell's Kitchen or something like that. That Jim and Jim lived together. And we couldn't have Florentine on the show because of the Howard thing.
Yeah.
The staffs got along fine. I used to talk to the guys over there all the time, or they would come by. Like Shuli's office when they had Howard 100 News was across from ours. So I'd say hi to Shuli all the time. He'd come by and say hello. We'd talk to Richard and Sal a lot. I'd see Ronnie in the morning. He'd be talking with our security guy, Club Soda Kenny. Like everybody talked. Just knew that Howard wanted nothing to do with Opie. And, they had their own quarter of the floor. Like a quarter of the floor was just Howard stuff. So you couldn't go in there. But when we would see the staff, everybody was fine. Like we didn't have that battle in real life with those people. Like, fuck them. We're never talking to them, give them dirty looks or start a fight. None of that. We'd always talk about they'd heard stuff on our show. We heard stuff on their show. I used to talk to Richard Christie and Sal about their Tradio phone calls. And I said, those are hilarious. That they call that guy that's just it was just an AM show somewhere where people would call up and say, hey, I have an old dryer that I'm looking to get rid of. I live at this place, $30 if you can carry it out on your own. And they would just make shit up and constantly prank call this AM show with all of the stuff that they would, their nonsense that they would come up with. And Yeah, we all got along fine. We used to see them in the elevators. I would see Robin or Gary in the elevators. Anthony would run into Fred and Gary in the elevators going up because we were on at the same time. Nobody had a problem with each other. It
Yeah.
was just Opie had a thing with Howard, and then because of that, Howard wanted nothing to do with any of us. So,
Well, it seemed like, and I didn't listen to Howard, so I can't come from a real like a good spot because I don't know how much he talked about you, but I was kind of under the impression that he
barely
didn't
any.
want. Yeah, he didn't want to acknowledge you guys. And Anthony does such a spot on Howard. It made for incredible radio over the years. I mean, just incredible. But it always seemed like it was in fun and it was funny as shit. And then there was Opie who had this like weird, like personal thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of the way it came off.
Yeah, that's accurate. Ope has a personal thing against Howard, but a lot of the stuff Ope did was exactly like Howard. You know, Howard lives on the Upper West Side. Opie had to have a place on the Upper West Side, and his place is not only like a couple blocks from Howard's apartment in the Upper West Side. Howard has a mansion out in the Hamptons. Opie had to get a house out in the Hamptons. Like, there's a lot of parallels, a lot of similarities to Ope's mindset of wanting to be Howard, wanting to get to that level. And I understand that being in the business, wanting to compete, you want to get to where the top guy is. You want the success the top guy has, or even try to find a way to outpace and further succeed than the top guy. But when it only becomes like tunnel vision and it's like, it's like, I need to be him, not be where that guy is at and try to achieve what they've achieved and exceed that. It's, I need to be him.
Yeah.
And then you go,
no, you don't.
That's the wrong way to do this. And that's another issue. It's like, why is it him? What is the personal vendetta against him?
Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird. Anyway, dude, this has been so much fun, Erock. We've gone over 2 hours.
I'm sorry.
No, dude, I could do another 2 hours.
I'm apologizing to your audience to have to listen to all of this for a guy you have no idea who he's talking to. And
they know.
They don't.
They know. I've given you guys props over the years. I even had clips to play. I wanted to get your perspective. Can I play one of them for you?
Please.
Just if it's the grape fight.
A lot of people.
Grapes.
The grape incident.
Eat grapes, and we'll do this after the break.
No, that's okay.
A lot of people have had.
Why don't you eat yogurt?
Huh?
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore.
I know. I just
I
started.
really don't. I realize that it's annoying, so I just like do it on the side.
Sorry, in 12 years, you could yell at me.
Whatever.
Come on, I'm fucking around. You're in a bad fucking mood.
I told you I
know, but don't let it affect the fucking show. You're in a bad fucking mood.
Has it the last 2 days?
Yes, it has.
No, it hasn't.
You've been in a cranky fucking mood. I understand we've been fired from fucking CBS and shit, but let me tell you something. I'm not the only one that notices. You're in a cranky fucking mood. Everyone's noticed.
Do you want me to start talking about what people notice about you? Leave it alone.
Yeah, tell me. Go ahead.
Leave it alone.
Tell me what people notice about me.
Leave it alone.
I'm not leaving anything alone.
Leave it alone.
Leave it alone.
Leave it alone.
Be honest. What happened?
You had a lot of moments over the last few years. Leave it alone. Seriously.
How did I have moments over the years?
Leave it alone. Just leave it alone.
Why leave it alone?
It was
Such a girl way of fighting.
Dude,
It's
there's
such a
so
girl
much
argument.
that goes on for 25 minutes. It's must
That
listen
is
radio.
That is a typical woman. I'm mad at you, but I'm not going to tell you why I'm mad at you. And you have to sit there and figure out why I'm mad at you instead of
leave it alone.
Guys will sit there. They'll either throw fists or they'll get right to the point. Here's the fucking problem. And you lay it flat out right there. So it's now front and center. Now let's deal with it. Women will just go, and you go, what's wrong? Nothing.
Leave it alone.
It's obviously something wrong. Oh, is there? I don't know. I'm not playing Clue with you. I'm not being a detective. I'm not sitting here and trying to pull this out of you. Either tell me or I'm going over there. Well, you do what you're going to want. You do what you want to do. Good. I'm leaving. Bye. I'll be back later. And then they're texting you. They're calling you, whatever. What the fuck is wrong with you? You're such an asshole. Why did you say I was standing right in front of you? Why don't you tell me that right now?
Yeah.
And let's blow up and get it done. So then you can resolve it and then move on.
Yeah.
That is a very chick way of dealing with those things. There's another famous clip. It's not the grape one. There's something else where they were fighting. And stupid me, because I was a little bit naive at that point, tried to interject with something to try to derail that and get them
Yeah.
onto some whatever. And that became a big joke because everybody else was like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you stopping that fight? I'm like, because this can't keep going on. And
Yeah.
apparently the audience thought I was wrong. I knew I was right technically from the business and the show point of view, but the content wise, I was 100% wrong. And I didn't
Wrong.
realize that till later, where I was
If
like,
you
they can't keep this fight going. We got to move on to other things.
if you notice that clip there, the grape one, nobody interjects. It's like,
Yeah, because at that point we all
Yeah.
knew it's like let him. It's been seething
yeah,
under the skin. Let it blow up. Let them verbally duke it out, and either one's gonna walk off, which usually Opie would walk out of the room, and then we just have to finish the show without him, or it's gonna get resolved, or something great is gonna come from all of those things. Those clips are I know the audience loves them, but
Yeah.
because when you're there, they're still. I didn't remember what the grape argument was because there's the blueberry argument. There's a whole bunch of different arguments, and then I'm like, when you play, I'm like, what was the grape argument? And then I'm like, oh, this was after this was after a couple of things, and then it brought me right back, and then you're like, oh, I don't want to hear mom and dad fight.
Yeah, that's
that.
what it is. No, the cool thing is, I feel like that's where Anthony, like at that point, Anthony was Anthony fucking Cumia, who was a powerhouse in his own right, doesn't have to take this from a bully, who can treat the staff a certain way, where people are stuck talking behind backs. Like,
It wasn't
I
from
always-
a bully. It was, I mean, yeah, in a way it was, but in Anthony's situation, I think it's more like, I don't need to take this from a shitty girlfriend, or you're
Right.
acting like my wife. And why would I'm not going to take this from my wife. Why would I take this from you? That
Yeah.
was the kind of relationship that particular incident seemed like. It's like, I'm not going to be fucking, we're not here for a drama performance where
Yeah.
you're just going to, pull this out. Don't leave it alone. We're not talking about it. Don't
Yeah.
bring it up then if you don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, and leave it alone
No.
is so passive aggressive. Like I have all this information that could destroy you, and if you don't knock it off, I'm threatening to. You better leave it alone. You better leave it alone.
I'm going to tell your mom.
Right.
Yeah, that
right.
kind of stuff. Yeah, but that's also now one of the catchphrases that's used to mock him, like "leave it alone." Leave it alone. We'll just leave it. Like that's when everybody makes fun of him. That's one of the things they say.
Do you remember that day? Do you remember an incident
did.
like that?
Once it took me a moment. I'm like, I didn't remember what the grape incident was, but when I heard that, and he's like, for the CBS firing and I'm like, oh, it all comes back now. I know where.
So what are you guys doing in that moment?
We're
Like,
not
are
in
you-
the studio. We're all outside of the studio. We're all in the side studios or whatever, and nobody's sitting there watching directly. We're all kind of in an angle that's askew to them. Like we're seeing what's going on, but they can't really see what we're doing, or we're pretending to be busy and we're just letting this go. We'll see
Yeah.
how this blows up today.
So do you have a monitor outside the studio so you're listening to it?
Well, there's giant panes of glass, so you could be out there. Oh, you're talking about audio. Yeah, you could hear it in our offices and stuff. But if I'm trying to remember if this was the CBS, the Sirius, or the XM studios that we were in. But yeah, we all our setups where we had secondary studios, because Ope would run the main board for what was in that studio. The secondary studio on the side is the board that ran that studio, the secondary studio, and then radio, syndication, the affiliates, satellite, all of that stuff was in the secondary studio. So the board I sat at took care of all the radio and the satellite stuff, plus controlled what they did in there. So if they wanted to get up and whatever, I could just turn off their studio and go to commercials, play whatever I want or whatever. So I have to sit there. I have a view this way. I have a monitor, a camera right here that gives me the other side of the studio, because they were all built weird. So if I couldn't see over there directly, I had a camera that gave me the line of sight to there. I could see what Opie was doing. I used to, here's another little thing. It has nothing to do with that, but Ope had a habit of turning everybody else's volume down and his all the way up, so that he was the louder voice, but he barely said anything. So there'd be times where like I could, like the guest and Ant and Jim are talking or whatever, and I'm like, I'm barely hearing this. They're all kind of mumbled, and I can look over there and I look at the camera and I see the pot position on the board, and Ope's all the way up here, and he has them down almost like a halfway. right? So I can do this thing where, because it's all digital, I could hit this key thing here. I can type that thing. Boom. Now I am mimicking his board on my board, right? The stuff automatically changes.
Oh
his computer.
no! So you have control of it?
Yeah. So when he's not looking, or if he's looking at because he used to look at the phones and instant feedback all the time.
Yeah.
So if he was looking at the main board, I'd sit there and I'd push the pots back up, dial out and flip back. So it comes back to my board, and he'd sit there for a while. And all of a sudden he'd go like this and look down. He'd bring the things back down again. So when he's not looking, I'm pushing the levels back up because he constantly made the phone calls lower, everybody else in the studio lower than him.
That's hilarious. Did he ever know you did that?
Probably. I don't think he ever did. No, but
no, that's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, we had those digital boards where everything was computerized, so I could just type in a code and boom, now I have the control of that board at my board.
Yeah.
And I would just fix those things all the time because same thing too. We used to have those instant replay machines with the sound effects.
Oh yeah.
And he would always have that lower, like Anthony's lower and his up higher and stuff. Or his was so high that they were so loud because I used to balance them, the sound clips, to put them on that system so that whenever you played it, the audio was consistent.
Yeah, consistent throughout.
Because there's a lot of people who
fuck that up.
People who would do that. They'd play one clip and it's kind of soft. The other thing was up here, like they never balanced it. I used to make sure everything was balanced. But his stuff would always be louder, and he'd always play the wrong clips at the wrong time just to interject, thinking it was funny.
Hilarious.
Anthony used to play that machine like it was a piano.
Yeah.
Hope would play it like a kid slapping on a little keyboard thing, right? But I would sit there too, and I'd have to manually adjust the pots on the board because he would always have the audio levels at a different spot.
Yeah, dude,
that means
so
nothing
funny
to anybody. It just used to make us laugh because we'd sit there and we go, "Look, he's doing it again," and we'd watch on the monitor, and there he was. He's pushing his thing up, and everybody else is down. And that when he's not paying attention, dial in and recorrect everything.
Yeah,
and
like
there was another thing that used to happen too. Is like we'd start the show and he would say, "Well, I can't get to what's with the phones? Why does nobody test the phones? I'm trying to get I can't see the screen, whatever." We had an engineer named Mars who would come in half an hour before the show, test all the phones. They were all working. We'd all call it. Like Mars would be in there. I'd be there. Could you call the line? I'd call the hotline. I'd call this line there. Oh, right, there we go. It's good. And if Mars was out or whatever, I knew the codes because everything was codes. It wasn't anything analog anymore. If Mars wasn't in, I had him on my phone. So I could dial in. Here's the thing for our screen. Here's how to connect to the other room. Here's all right. Test there. It's done. He would fiddle with shit all the time. And we'd start the show. The phones aren't working. What's going on? Because he would click shit. He's one of those guys that constantly has to touch things. And then he would disconnect something, or he'd hit a button that would turn the audio off of this pot coming in. So I have to walk in there. I'd move his chair, and while they're talking, boom, boom, boom. Oh, Erock fixed the phones. It's like, yeah. I
unbroke what you
things.
broke.
Everything's good for you. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Things like that. That's not major things to hate the guy for. Just little idiosyncrasies that you look at and you go, God, it's always this. It became hilarious because, like, let's see how long it takes him to ruin the phone system or turn this guy's volume down because he's talking too much.
That's so funny.
5 seconds. Look, there it is.
Can I play one more clip for you?
Oh, sure. Why not?
It's one of my favorite bits. It's Patrice O'Neal, Bobo, the up and down game.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, it's Patrice's laugh.
That high where it sounds like a tornado siren where it starts low and then you just hear it getting up to full blast. Yeah.
And this is just a taste of it. And maybe I'll ask you some stuff behind the scenes. And thank God Opie filmed it. So if you're watching right now, you can see a clip of it.
Yeah.
Sam filmed it. Okay. And should we explain the game first or just play the clip first?
I'll explain it real quick. It was just
go ahead.
Bobo was one of I guess you could call it a whack packer. We never called them that, but for people to understand, it's just that offshoot of gremlins and special people that we would have around the show. And we were friendly with. They'd come in and they'd participate and do bits or whatever. Bobo had a thing where we started to notice like he would get erections in his pants if a girl was talking to him. And it didn't even have to be a really hot girl talking to him. Just a female was talking to him.
Right.
So we started to do this thing where like he'd talk and we'd see his pants go like this. And we'd be pointing out. So while Bobo's talking about the girl or whatever, and we'd sit there and then you start talking to him about the Mets and then it would just go right down. It was like it was on command. It's not like a guy's thing where it takes a while for the blood to leave and then it eventually goes down. It would just go down and up like you flip the light switch, right? So we had this thing where I don't know what the setup was to how we convinced Bobo to stand there with his pants down.
Nude.
But the studio's blocked. Well, not nude, like top and everything. He's covered.
He was Donald Duck in it. He had a shirt on and no pants.
Right. So I don't remember how we got him to that state, but the point was he talking about a girl. Patrice didn't know anything about this. We told him, and then you hear this clip here.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, buddy. You probably hate going through this, but
no, it's fine. Go ahead.
Oh man.
Well, yeah, of course. I figured that she'd slide those little thong panties off too. To a motel.
Did she wear a bra?
Yeah, but you know what I might do? Get her the next time I'm at the Stress Factory. I might get her one of those. You can take me that thing. You can say she goes to the Stress Factory after you.
And Bobo keeps going.
There was tears. Pat's like fading away.
Yes, he is. Your voices was freaking stuck in my head the day I went to.
You get the point.
Just a week ago.
And watching listening to that whole thing, it's an hour long. It's some of the fun because Patrice does it again. I've never heard a laugh like that. Hearing Bobo just keep plowing through. I don't know what his condition is. It's the most remarkable thing. I don't know where you found that guy.
Bobo, I think Bobo's origin, I think he just showed up to something that we were starting to do live audiences.
Yeah.
And our XM studio, outside of our studio, we had bleachers, these metal risers like we have at a high school football game. And we'd let a certain amount of people in on Fridays, and they could sit outside the studio while we did the show. So they're in the office, the XM facility, but they were sitting on these bleachers right outside the show. And we had a giant pane of glass so they could watch it. We had the monitors out there and we could go and talk to them. And we used to have the staff feel out who was special or who might be interesting, or there's a hot girl there on the stands, talk to, to meet people. This guy brought a gift. This guy has a connection to something, those kind of things. And Bobo, I guess, showed up. I think that's how it was. Bobo showed up one day and we're like, what is this? And then you hear him talk and everything. And then Bobo just became a mainstay because, I mean, why wouldn't you?
Dude, it was some of the funniest radio. And that clip that I played, the best, it's like to go in a 30-second span from like, what do you think the Mets relievers are going to look like this season? It's like, well, I think so-and-so is going to do great. By the way, did you see Michelle walk by? Did you see those titties? I bet you like, and it's just like, and Anthony gets the slide whistle out. I mean, it's just so good, so funny. And I mean, I don't know, dude. It's such good shit. It's Hall of Fame caliber in and of itself. Dude, I prepared like this notes for you, your career.
But see,
I got to none of it. I didn't even look at it.
See, that means you did it right, because that's the whole thing that we did with O&A and all of our shows since then is you prepare for everything and get to nothing. And if you got to nothing, then you did it right, because there are times where there's not enough going on or not enough stuff to talk to people about, and then you go through that stuff. And that's why it's there. You don't ever want to go and do a show and you go, I've got nothing prepared. I can't even talk my way out of this stuff. What am I supposed to do? But if you have a lot of stuff and like we didn't even get to the most of the stuff that we had prepped here, then you did a good show.
Yeah.
You did your job the right way.
Yeah.
Have all of that, do all that work, but if you don't get to it, that doesn't mean that's bad. That
Yeah.
just means you didn't get to it. I to this day doing my iHeart show, I have tons of videos and stuff prepped, and we like I actually had talks where I had to stop talking. They needed me to do shorter shows. Our show at some points we're expanding to 3 hours.
Yeah.
And they're like, the newest research shows people listen at most to half an hour chunks of audio podcasts.
Yep.
And those are the ones that are doing really well, ad wise, metric wise, whatever, unless you're a name like Alex Cooper or Joe Rogan that can command the audience to be there for a long amount of time. The longer form podcasts are just not where it's at anymore.
Yeah.
Unless they're a super fan and they'll sit there and watch it for a long time. So I've been constantly trying, and Jordan always gives me shit at the end. He goes, "Remember you said you wanted to do an hour and a half?" And it's like, "Yeah, we're at 2:45." I'm like, "God damn it!" And there's still all this stuff we didn't get to, but don't take that as a problem. We could always do a part 2 if you want to.
I would love
back
to
do that. And plus, I didn't even really get a chance to volley the serve back to you and to talk about you and how your start and. Like I said, I know very little about the workings of Drew and Mike. I know of them. I knew the only other show I knew for a while out there was do you remember Rocky Allen? Do you remember that name?
No, I actually
there was a station called, I think it was called WDVD in Detroit.
DVD,
and,
sure.
Yeah, Rocky Allen and Blaine Ansley were doing their morning shows there before coming to New York. And doing it at PLJ and all that stuff.
Were they mornings?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe they were a morning show.
Okay.
But I think they were like 80s into the early 90s because then they came to PLJ. And then I think they had a stint going back to Detroit for a little while at the end of the 90s or something.
Yeah.
I think they were back out there. But as far as Detroit radio goes, I knew of you guys. I knew Rocky was from out there and my pal Erik Zane.
Oh yeah, I know Erik. Erik worked with us for a minute.
Free beer and hot wings and stuff.
Yes, I worked with Erik. He filled in for Drew when Drew was out for a year. He was going to be his replacement at one point. So that was a complete fucking disaster. But Erik's a good guy. I had him on the podcast at one point a few years ago. When he left Free Beer and Hot Wings or was fired for whatever. So we could do this many times over. And I appreciate the time. I'm jealous, dude. I think April 13th, going over to WABC and seeing Jimmy, and I hope he crams as many of you guys in there as possible and kicks the ball around. I hope you're prepared for whatever fat jokes they're going to throw at you.
There's nothing they can say to me at this point that's going to be a fucking problem in my life because it's like it's like a boot camp, you know, and you get to the point where you've done it at that level so high for so long that you can just walk into any situation. It's like, all right, I can talk about this. All right, I can react to this. And I have no problem.
Yeah.
There might be some things you don't want to talk about personal life wise or whatever, but anything else that comes at you, it's like, all right, let's do it. Let's talk about it. I can handle that.
Yeah.
And that's a great place to be in.
Were there ever times when it was like storm out of the studio and go home because you got beat up too hard?
There was like one or two where I got furious because one time I remember I got so mad I left and I didn't know if I was coming back because there was a problem with management at the time, and Anthony had fallen asleep at a meeting. And I saw one of the managers was taking photos of Anthony and writing stuff down that he saw that Anthony was sleeping. So I was like, uh-oh, that could be bad. So I had told Anthony, and I thought it was not going to be brought up on the air. I was like, hey, this happened at a meeting. Oof. They did this, whatever. Ant got so pissed off, not at me, but at management, because he was pissed at them to begin with, and went and said it on the air. And I got furious because I know now you get to walk away. Yeah. I have to now deal with upper management threatening me or suspending me or whatever it was, because who knows what I was going to be facing. But I told you as a way of so that he could look out and be prepared if they tried to blindside him with something. That's our jobs. We're supposed to take care of the morning show, look out for the morning show, protect the morning show. And when that got on air, I lost my shit. I was like, what the fuck? It was like a real betrayal of confidence, I guess. Right. And I walked out. The other time was I didn't walk out. I didn't come back. Was that Opie thought it would be funny to call me on vacation.
Oh, I remember it.
And wasn't paying attention because he's looking at the phones in the comments and puts my phone number out over the air. Now I'm sleeping. I'm on vacation. I'm not awake. I wake up. My phone is bricked. Like I look and when you start seeing text messages and phone calls and it's all the red 9s across your phone, like, because I have an iPhone and you're like 9999 and you're like, what the my phone's not working. I can't even turn my phone on because so many people are trying to call or consistently call. I got a text from a friend to the person I'm with, got texted the people I'm with and said, Opie gave out his phone number on the air. And I'm looking, I go, I can't use my phone now because I can't block all of these things. I was furious. So I had to call up Tim Sabian. I'm like, what the fuck? And he said, Tim's like, look, and he's like, I know, I heard. And he's like, we'll take care of it. And he's like, just, try to enjoy your. I said, I can't. I'm fucked right now. I was so furious. And Tim's like, well, we'll deal with this when you come back. I said, no, Tim, we're going to deal with it now because I'm not coming back. What do you mean you're not coming back? I said, I'm done. Fuck them. Fuck this place. I'm done. I hung up the phone. I went on my vacation. I didn't talk to anybody. So I told him I wasn't coming back. And then after I had to get a new phone number and everything. And then, when I finally got back in touch and Tim's like, you have to come back. I came back and I didn't do the show that day. When I came back in, I went right and sat in Tim's office. And I said, you got to fix this because this is a problem. This isn't something that for the good of the show that I have to overlook it or whatever. This is affecting my personal life now. Yeah. You need to do this because the company caused this. The show caused it. He caused it. And then it turned into the bit where he had to pay for my vacation. It was several $1,000s. Yeah. But then he brought it back. He went and it's a dick of a move as a human being, but it's funny because of the show. He went and got, he had to order bricks of quarters he had to go to banks and have them order the bricks. And he gave me several $1,000s in bricks. And they brought Kenny brought the
wheelbarrow
hand trucks, dumped the bricks on the floor, took the hand truck, and they left. I can't lift these things. They're too heavy. Like you try to carry one and it's a giant brick of quarters. It's heavy. And I can't get all of this stuff down. So I have to call building maintenance to try to get a hand truck to try to take the service elevators to get this down. We're on the 36th floor in Manhattan. I have to try to figure out a way to get this down to the loading dock, get my car from the garage to the loading dock to try to load these into the back of my. And I had a Yukon at the time, right? So a suspension vehicle. And you see the back dropping down from the weight of these things. Then trying to go to a bank to cash these in and they won't take them.
Yep.
Because these have to come from the treasury.
Before they had the coin op things, if you brought in rolls of quarters, they wouldn't just take those.
No. Well, they would take them. They would take a certain amount of rolls of quarters at the bank teller. You had to put your account number and everything. But I had to sit there and talk to like a specialist. When you have to go to the office of a bank, that's never good. Yeah. So you're sitting there talking and go, this is why I have this thing. I got this money. I'm trying to deposit. I had to deposit it in 3 different branches of my bank because they would not take it all at one branch. So I had to try to deposit several $1,000s of quarters at different branches of the national bank that I belong to in order to get that money to pay back for everything. So that was the only other example of where I stormed out. One was I stormed out. The other is I just said I was not coming back, and they told me that I.
Did you regret that when you said I'm done? Fuck these guys. I'm out. No. Hang up the phone.
No,
like
I was tired.
How many days later was it before you went? I kind of had a good thing going there.
No, it was a week. I didn't care. I was so spiteful of that. I felt that. I was like, that was a big fuck you to me. And from the person who did that was a big fuck you to me, even though it was because he's like, it was an accident. I didn't hear it. But we have 3 dump buttons, and nobody hit the dump buttons. Now, Anthony hit his after because Anthony wasn't paying attention. He heard the phone number, leaned over, and then hit his right after the fact. But it was past that moment that would have cut it from the broadcast. But the guy on the board didn't hit it. Opie had a button, didn't hit it. Nobody made an attempt until Anthony tried to slam the thing down there, and that was the problem. Like, you didn't catch it. We had like a 30-second delay that we could, or a minute, whatever it was. It was an extended long delay and all that time you couldn't hit it. It wasn't like we had 3 seconds. We had like a long time.
Yeah,
you could have kept hitting the button.
Multiple dumps. Nothing.
Multiple. So at that point, I was like, I was done. I was fed up.
So what did it visually go out or audible? Was it like your
audible
number?
It was live on satellite to 2 countries.
Oh my God, dude. And so that's what happens. It bricks your phone when you get 10,000 calls.
Yeah, because you saw how Jocktober would. They would destroy your Facebook and social media and stuff. You're getting people constantly just sending me horrific texts, filling up my voicemail, nonstop calling. The second I would turn my phone back on, there's phone calls. You'd hang up, another phone call, another phone. They just didn't stop.
Oh
I'm like,
my
I can't use this phone. It is bricked. I can't do anything. So I had to leave Disney World and go try to find an Apple dealer to get my phone number changed while I was on vacation with family and other people. And it was just a whole ordeal. So,
and the way we use our phones, you're at Disneyland, Disney World with your family. I mean, you're texting each other in the park. Like I'm guessing it's none of that. You can't do anything.
My whole family had to go amongst their day while I left the property to go find an Apple store at Verizon or whatever it was to go and get my phone number changed.
So what do the people at the Apple store say? Are they like, what's going on, pal? Like,
no, I just said I need to change my phone number. Well, what happened? And I said, somebody gave out my phone number on a radio show, and they looked at my phone and saw all the numbers were at 9. So they're like, oh,
what does that mean? The number's at 9.
Do you have an iPhone or are you an Android guy?
I do. I do have an iPhone.
So at that time, you would have some of your most used icons at the bottom. So you would have your phone icon and you would have that little green and white bubble that meant text messages.
Yeah.
And it would have the notifications that would tell you, hey, you've got 3 calls at the bottom. Yeah, like that at the bottom, those red numbers. Right there.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
They were all 9.
Because that's what happens. It can't go to 1,000. It's only got 3.
Yeah,
the bubbles only got.
It only goes 3. But that's all it was. So I just I can't delete this many messages. I can't delete this many missed phone calls, and my voicemail system was completely full. And for what people want to say about who cares is it's your phone number, just get a new phone number. Your phone number is tied to a lot of things.
A ton
of your things. So it's tied, to certain apps for like maybe your mortgage or a bank account or something with your medical information or pharmaceuticals and, all these kind of things. Your number's tied to a lot of things, and you have to change your number. You don't remember everything that your phone number is associated to. So when you try getting stuff, done, and you're like, oh shit, there's another thing I have to go and change my phone number for. There's another thing I have to go do all of that stuff.
Not to mention all your contacts and all the relationships
you got to tell all your family members, this is my new phone number, save this, get rid of the old one. Yeah. Business contacts, networking, all of those things. Yeah. It's a huge pain in the ass. For regular people, it's not that big a deal, I guess. But when you use your phone for that level of work, and you got to tell everybody this is your new phone number, it's a huge, huge undertaking.
Does Opie ever say to you, "Hey, man, that was a dick move. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to," or is it just like, "Ha ha, fuck you. Good luck. Here's a bunch of quarters."
No. I think he only paid because the company told him that this was going to be a legal issue if he did not, if they didn't take care of this. So he wound up paying for, most of the cost of the vacation. And the way he executed it, what could I do? At that point.
Yeah.
For the show, it was the right move. As a person, it was a completely asshole scumbag move.
Yeah.
So I had to walk that line of like, well, I have to suck this part up for this terrible thing because he's giving me all this money to pay back for this thing, for this terrible situation he put me in. So yeah, it's a real juxtaposition because everything's got to center around the show and the content. So that was the right move professionally. As a person, it was completely the wrong move, but was what it was. I don't remember. I think he might have apologized or something, but it could have been one of those apologies that wasn't really the apology. It's like, I'm forced to apologize to you, so I'm apologizing to you.
Yeah.
It was almost like you bully a kid and then that kid's parents come over and talk to your parents and your parents make you go talk to the kid and say, apologize for bullying that kid. That's the scenario that it was. So
yeah. Oh my God. Wasn't it worth it all in the end? Just having that story alone. I mean, looking back on it now, it's like, what are you gonna do?
They're great stories, for anyone who gives a shit. Yeah, they're great stories. I've always been of the mindset for, I've said earlier when people said you've caused your own problems, you brought this to yourself. A lot of people believe things that might have been somewhat storylines, whatever, and they take it as absolute fact that you were terrible at your job, you weren't good, you didn't do anything, you do all these other things. It's like, if I was any of those things you said, I wouldn't have been there that long. I wouldn't have been at the level, and what they were paying me, they would not have paid me for all of that stuff. So believe what you want. Go ahead if that makes you happy, or if that fills in some of the question marks that you have. So you're just going to make up your answers and go with that. Go ahead. That's fine. But I don't regret my time on there. I think it definitely was an amazing experience. It was a once in a lifetime kind of thing. Being in a business, you dream of being a morning show. You dream of getting syndicated. You dream of doing all of these things, and getting the chance to do that. I set out to do what I wanted. Now that's happened, I still want it. There's still more I'd like to do. There's still more I want to do. So it doesn't mean I'm done, but I can look back and go, I did something. It
was pretty awesome.
Part of something. I'm okay with that. Whatever happens going forward. But I don't sit there and live my life in any kind of regret where it's like, I never made it. I never had a chance. I worked so hard, or I just never had the opportunity. I don't have that story. I look back and I go, it was one of the most brutal and amazing times at the same time. And I'm appreciative. It's given me so much in my life.
Sure.
I'm content with
I love it.
with everything. And I think everybody else has a level of appreciation for being a part of that show, or almost everybody. And if you're not looking back at it, and it's like, if you're looking at it as miserable, I hated being there and everything, then that's on you. That's your problem. If you're jealous of other people for what they got, their success, or what they had, everything, well, then why didn't you do it? There was an opportunity for you to do it. You just didn't figure out how to do it. That's not my problem. That's not anybody else's problem that succeeded. Or if you worked at another show or another company, it's like, I could have done what you did. Well, you didn't.
Yeah.
You still could. Maybe you could, but you didn't. So why is that my fault? That's not my fault at all.
Dude, I root for the success of everyone I work for.
I do too.
I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the fact that it's like, boom, that I love that the Opie and Anthony show is there. The Drew and Mike show had success for 22 years or whatever. It's fucking amazing.
That's an amazing story. No, most people don't have anywhere close to that story.
No.
And I'm friends with a lot of people in radio, and unfortunately, because of the last year to few years, so many of those people are not in radio anymore because the industry turned into complete shit, and everyone's been getting fired nonstop since August. But I'm friends with a lot of people in radio, and when they get opportunities and they succeed in everything, do I look and go, fuck, I wish I had that opportunity? So, depending on what it is, sometimes, but I'm never jealous. Like, how come that asshole's got that opportunity and I don't?
Yeah.
He found an opening. Good for him. I've supported people. I've helped. I've advised. I've been a consultant to people. A lot of them are all let go now because of, the companies don't believe in hiring personalities or having people on their radio stations anymore. But
do you think the industry survives?
It definitely changes. It won't be the industry that we know. They're so far behind. They always have been behind, and they will continue to be behind. Um, I've always said the way everything's been going, these companies need to collapse in order for radio to survive. They need
Yeah.
to. Right now, they're holding on to those things where their debt is more valuable than their success. So the debt keeps them alive because their creditors and everything need to make their money off of them. They can't just write this off. But it'll get to a point where the debt is too heavy that we can't even hope to try to make any of our money back.
Yeah.
We have to cut the losses. A lot of these companies need to sell off their stations to eccentric millionaires or insurance companies or things like that, where people were looking to buy stations as novelty pieces, or they think that they can turn them into something valuable to promote other factions of their industry, the other companies that they own on this radio station, and take chances, which is why WABC is an amazing opportunity for Anthony. That station was owned by Cumulus, Disney, going back, ABC, Cap Cities, all of that shit. When Cumulus got to the point where they just couldn't afford to keep things anymore and they had to sell off stations, a guy who loves radio, who made his money in other aspects of industry, bought that radio station, bought radio stations around the country, made his own little mini network of it, and is taking chances, hiring people and personalities that want to do radio, that want to compete. And they have that mindset of, I don't give a fuck if people are trying to cancel these people, or people are trying to say, well, if you hire this person, we're never going to advertise with you. Go fuck off then.
Good.
They're going back to that mentality. So you need smaller companies. You need smaller people willing to take these stations and go, I'm willing to hire people, and let's actually kick the ass of the people across the street. Because if you try to compete across the street is 6 studios down the hallway from you, because Clear Channel owns iHeart owns everything, or Entercom owns everything. Your whole cluster is on the same floor in the same building. You can't talk bad about those other shows, those other stations. You can't even do anything. Hey, what you're doing is overshadowing our morning show over there, and they're the top station we have. So that's not my problem. You need to tone it down a little bit. What? I'm here to make money for this station, whatever. Right, but you're costing us money at that thing, so you need to stop. You can't run a business like that.
No.
Going into these smaller factions of radio, we'll see now cable television's about to enter this year. MTV and Comedy Central are being sold off. So once Viacom gets rid of them, because they're not making, listen to that, Comedy Central and MTV are not making money.
That's insane
for them.
Insane.
These networks realize our cable channels don't mean anything anymore. We're just running like Impractical Jokers 24 hours a day, and for ad runoff, there's no sense in having this network anymore. People are not flipping through cable just trying to find something to watch anymore. Why would I sit there and do that when, I missed that show that you guys have? I go right to your streaming component. NBC has
bypass all your ads, everything.
Yeah, Disney and Fox are all through Disney Plus and Hulu. I can just go right there and watch the show. Then rather than set my DVR at 8 p.m. to tape that show that I would want to watch, I don't need to do that shit anymore. So if cable's going to sell off their cable, if networks are going to sell off their cable channels, that's like companies selling off their radio stations that aren't doing anything for them anymore. Give them to other people that are willing to invest, willing to be creative and take chances and hire personalities and come up with programming to make it unique and to make it make money. But that's got to be
personality driven. That's the only way you're going to compete.
It does. And they don't.
That's it.
They don't want personalities because it costs money. So
of course,
and they think, music is still going to carry these formats, and that doesn't work anymore.
No,
you've been in radio long enough. You knew the old adage of, if this isn't working, flip it to classic rock, or flip it to sports talk, or flip it to Spanish programming. Those were like kind of the big three of the failsafe. It's like, this new format's not working. Cool, kill it. We're going to make it a classic rock station. It'll be instant money. It'll be instant whatever. None of that works anymore unless it's sports talk or news talk, political talk. Those kind of things still can work out. Sometimes foreign language based on
personality driven,
though. Right?
Personality, like that's
music isn't carrying these stations anymore.
No.
It's like we're New York's or we're LA's number one rock station, number one hit music station. Right. So is Spotify, that playlist that
Yeah.
updates me every week. I have this one playlist I can follow that tells me all the new songs that came out this week. It's all right there. So I don't have to sit there and listen to a radio station on the off chance you're going to maybe play that new song from that artist if the record label paid you enough or kissed your ass enough to get that
Right.
on the station there. No, I can hear all this new music on these music streaming things. I don't need the radio station anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's
what
insane.
am I wasting my time? And then
No,
you don't need the
you're-
music stations. You need personalities.
You need personalities. The same with the news, the idea of, local news, like, oh yeah, you're waiting till half past before giving me a sports update. Like,
Right.
You realize nobody's getting their weather and sports and traffic from this, right? No one.
It depends on the market. Like in New York, we have 10-10 wins, and in a 20-minute cycle, they give you everything, and they're constantly updating you with. If you're in LA or you're in New York, the traffic does matter on a certain station where you're getting live updates about
But you have it on your
highways and closed
phone.
and stuff. Yeah, but when you're driving, you're not the Waze app
Yeah,
can only
okay.
do so much. So when you're looking at what's coming up, but if you hear like, oh, the Lincoln Tunnel's got a major accident that just happened,
Yeah.
you're like, fuck, I'm on my way to the Lincoln Tunnel right now. All right,
Yeah.
I have enough time to get off and try to go down to the Holland Tunnel or get on I-95 to go somewhere else. In those markets, that works. You're right.
Yeah.
Everywhere else, traffic doesn't mean anything. Weather doesn't mean anything.
No.
News updates do.
Yeah,
there's
I
a
guess
reason
in a
why
ma-
like CNN and Fox still do well on satellite because they're hearing the news updates as it happens.
Right.
With a signal going coast to coast that it keeps it consistent. So
Yeah.
news will do it, but yeah, news personalities, that's the only way radio's and smaller ownership, that's the only way radio's going to have a chance at surviving.
Yeah, I agree. I lived it. Greater Media owned us. They were a small, mom and pop, essentially had, I don't know, a handful of newspapers, handful of radio stations based out of Boston, but they knew who we were. Like the president of the thing, guys would invite him to their wedding and shit. And like, it was that you were not a number. There was people behind those paychecks. Like you knew who these personalities were personally. It was not a giant, Disney ABC conglomerate. We own 5,000 and this one falls off. Who gives a shit? It just wasn't, Yeah. Erock, I've taken enough of your time. We've gone almost 3 hours, brother. This has been awesome. This is so fun for me. I told my audience, I don't care. This is a me show today. Yeah. So thank you so much. I can't wait to do it again. And
if you're unhappy with this, reach out to Mike. He'll gladly refund your Patreon for the month for this.
There you go. Absolutely. Where do you want people to go? It's Erik Nagel.
Erik with a K. It's what?
Erik with a K.
Erik with a K, spelled correctly, is like to say.
Yeah.
It's Erik Nagel, all one word, on all the social media platforms. We do our shows live. We record our shows live on Thursday nights through YouTube and Twitch, and then it goes out to iHeart on Friday morning for the audio stuff. So if you want to be part of the live show as we do it, go subscribe to our YouTube channel or our Twitch channel, and it gives you alerts when we go live. You can participate in the show if you feel the need to do so. Otherwise, the produced versions of the show are on our YouTube channel. The audio version is on iHeartRadio. If you have that app, do us a favor, go over there and put us in your. The iHeart app has a thing now, like your old dad's tuner buttons in his car, your presets. So they have a preset thing at the top of the app, and that's what the company cares about right now. It's which shows or radio stations are on the number one position on the preset, because that's what they think means something. So if you have that app and you feel the need to do something with it, put our show on your number one on the preset there. That does help us out. I don't know how it helps us out. I'm just told that it does.
P1s, man. P1s. Still matter, right?
Nothing, but that's what they look at. People have to justify their job somehow. But anyway, it's an iHeart app, but also Apple and Spotify. We're there. Do us a kindness. Go over there. If you like the show, great. Leave us a positive review. It helps out the program. So you got the audio version for us and the video version on YouTube. And that's how you can help us out.
Awesome. Erik, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And again, can't wait to do it again soon.
Yeah, let me know. You've got all that paperwork that you put it in a folder somewhere, and we'll come back and do part 2.
I had 6 pages of shit for you. So
all right.
Yeah, we got plenty more to do. Thank you, brother. Have a great weekend. I know it's only Thursday, but still. And I will talk to you soon.
Thank you, Michael.